G'day, mate. 40 here. So right now it looks like Joe Biden very much a very strong favorite to become the next president of the United States. So
right now weighing in on this. So we don't know where all of this will go. We do know that in the background here, along the way, Joe Biden has gotten within 6 electoral votes of replacing Donald Trump. Here comes the fine.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Martha McCallum, Juan Williams, Jesse Waters, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five.
G'day, mate. 40.
Breaking news, Fox News now projecting that Joe Biden will win the state of Michigan. The former VP now just 6 electoral college votes away from capturing the magic number of 270. But it is not over yet. Votes still being counted in other key battlegrounds, including Pennsylvania, Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia. The Trump campaign is still confident it can win. And Joe Biden saying earlier that when all the votes are counted, that he will be the next president.
After a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we've won, but I am here to report when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winners.
All right, as we have been doing, let's check in with Bill Hemmer at the Billboard for an update on the state of the race. You're just upstairs there, Bill.
Yes, indeed. Nice to well, socially distanced, right? I mean, this is safe, isn't it, Dana?
Safe.
You're talking about Pennsylvania. Why don't we start there? That seems to be where the action is.
Okay, so if Trump takes Pennsylvania and Arizona, that puts him pretty close to going over the top. ABC retracted their call of Arizona. New York Times never called it. Most outlets never called a winner in Arizona. Fox News made the first call, and it was hours before anyone followed suit. Reminds me of the 2018 midterms elections, with votes still being cast, with polling stations still open on the West Coast for over an hour and a half. So I think it was like 6:22 p.m. on the West Coast. Fox called the Democrats to take the House of Representatives. So way before anybody else. Now, on the other hand, Megyn Kelly noted today that Fox's decision desk has not had to retract a call in 20 years. So that is a pretty impressive record. So even if they're telling you news that you don't want to hear, even if you think they're calling things way too early, if you think they're interfering with the election because voting is still going on, if they haven't had to retract in 20 years from their decision desk, that's a very impressive record. Ben Shapiro tweets, Trump campaign sounds pretty confident that Trump has a serious shot at taking Arizona and Pennsylvania. Arizona, Biden currently leads by approximately 93,000 votes. There were 605,000 votes cast on Election Day. Trump would just need to pull 58% of the remaining votes to win. Team Trump says they're pulling 62% in Maricopa County, 72 to 80% in other counties. They're projecting a 30 to 40,000 vote win. Pennsylvania, Trump is up by approximately 454,000 votes. There are 1.12 million votes outstanding. Biden needs 78% of those votes to win the state. So right now, the betting markets are overwhelmingly confident that Joe Biden will be next president. But as you know, the betting markets have been all over the place over the past 24 hours. How much fraud do you think is going on in our electoral process? Because think about areas of life that you know, right? How much fraud is going on in areas of life that you know? So plumbers, how often do plumbers exaggerate or cheat their customers to get them to, say, buy something that's much more expensive than what they need? Or how many plumbers do you know are simply shoddy in their work, how careless they are in their work? I mean, think about psychiatrists. Probably 10 to 20% of people who go to psychiatrists would have been better off never going, or to a therapist. Probably another, 50% are essentially unchanged. And then maybe 30 to 40% receive some benefit. So there's a great deal of corruption in any area of life that you know well. If you work in a church, you work in a synagogue, you work in a mosque or a law office or a dental office or a medical office, you know how much fraud and corruption is endemic to the human condition. Donald Trump tweets, "We have claimed the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, which won't allow legal observers, the state of Georgia and the state of North Carolina, each one of which has a big Trump lead. Additionally, we hereby claim the state of Michigan if, in fact, there was a large number of secretly dumped ballots, as has been widely reported." So that's a Trump tweet from 8 minutes ago. All right. So we know that Trump is a fighter. He's not going to just give up. Now, I'm thinking about the stress of this election. A lot of people are saying that they can't handle the stress of this election. So it's really a measure of one's maturity. Because if you're having a hard time dealing with this election, or you're having a hard time dealing with COVID and its ramifications, that's not just a one-off. That the issues that come up for you with regard to, say, the lockdown or the economic dislocation resulting from the lockdown or from the stress of getting sick or the stress of the election, those issues are with you every day. They're just at a much lower level. And then when you have outlier events like the election or a pandemic, they just make explicit what is implicit in your life. So if you're drinking too much to deal with the elections, you probably have a drinking problem in other areas of your life. And I notice this particularly on Twitter. I notice that the black-pilled people tend to be alcoholics. Like, alcohol has a depressive effect on people. And so I'm thinking about one prominent Trump critic who I'm friendly with, but every time I read his tweets or interact with him, he seems intoxicated. So if you're under the influence of alcohol most of the time, of course, you're going to have a melancholy and depressed view of life. Yes, Dooovid, about ready to get back to learning Torah. So I sent you an invite if you just want to pop in, send it to your Gmail address, and we'll just have a little chat if you're up for it. But otherwise, we'll get back to doing more of our regular streams, Dooovid, as soon as we have clarity on who the next president will be. But people like to think, oh, it's just this election, or it's just that my team lost the game, that's why I had to beat my wife, or it's just because I didn't get the raise, and that's why I'm such a bitter person. I didn't get, what I deserve. So I always like to hear what Greg Gutfeld has to say, so let's turn it on.
They have enough votes to maintain a lead in Pennsylvania. So again, Pennsylvania and Arizona, I believe, are the key to the president. It's a narrow path. I will admit that. More narrow than Joe Biden's, but it's doable, and they're confident that that will happen.
All right, Greg Gutfeld, we haven't heard from you yet today, and we've been dying to.
Well, I have to say, this is a mess. The upside is, I guess, the looters are going to have to put off their Christmas shopping for a few days. So that's very sad. It is.
Well, the chemistry between Greg Gutfeld and Dana Perino is just off the hook.
It is upsetting. We are the most developed nation in the world, and we can't count. We have adults that are in charge of counting things, and they can't count. You'd think we would have had this thing figured out, but we didn't factor in a few other things. I am going to use an analogy because I looked at this last night, and I thought of it like a Thanksgiving turkey. You spend all this time preparing for the meal, right? Mm-hmm. And then you put it in the oven, you set it and forget it, right? 6 hours, 7 hours, however long. That's what it took. So I go to bed. I don't expect somebody in the middle of the night to come in and open up and screw the turkey, which is what happened last night.
They screwed the turkey.
They screwed the turkey. I mean, it's like all this weird stuff goes on. You go to bed, hey, everything's fine. You wake up and something's going on. I just thought that was really strange. But I also think that everybody in America is tired of being told something that isn't true. We were expected this massive blowout, right? Because Trump is like so hated, and he's a racist, and he's going to lose.
And breaking news, Jean-Francois Gaudrepi has to cancel tonight's show. He's lost his voice.
Minorities and women. And then you find out that, no, not at all. This is razor thin. There was no blowout. CNN admits that.
Breaking news, Nick Fuentes says he is standing back and standing by, Mr. President.
He gained in minorities, even gained in women, and he did get the seniors in Florida after all. So you still find out that despite what the media and pollsters were telling you for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, America still loves this guy. This wasn't the outcome we were told. So I think that that's really, I think that there's a frustration in the people at home who are watching this and going like, what a bunch of BS we were told. We were told that everybody in America hates this guy, that this guy is so awful and evil. And here he is. He's like, he could win. And there's some weird shenanigans going on. Something flew out of my mouth just now. And let's not forget, you can get mad that Trump is fighting for this like anybody would. Remember, Hillary still hasn't conceded 2016, and neither have the media.
So this hot chick who wrote for Reason magazine, I interviewed her for my website, and she goes on Greg Gutfeld's show, or she used to go on Red Eye. And I guess Greg and her were talking about me one day. And I think I'd written a blog post where I was saying that Red Eye, Greg Gutfeld's former Fox show Red Eye, was a guilty pleasure because I really, really enjoyed reading it, but I felt like it morally desensitized me. And as it was relayed to me, Greg Gutfeld said, Luke is a pretty weird guy.
So I just think that, and also, one last point, this isn't about networks. It's about an election. So this race to be first and getting the greatest ratings, that's awesome. But at what expense?
All right. Martha,
Okay, so do we get mad at Fox if they give us accurate decision calls that we simply don't like? But as long as it's accurate, what does it matter then if they lead the way? Now, you could say that it has a material effect on the election, and I've heard a whole conspiracy theory that when Fox came out and said that Joe Biden had taken Arizona, that there are all these subsequent effects as a result of that, and it was part of some giant conspiracy to rob Trump of the election. I'm skeptical of those type of claims. I'm skeptical of those color revolution claims, but I listen to them. I'm not really smart enough to poke holes in them. When I read the New York Times, I don't read it with this highly, highly critical eye, just moderately critical eye. And when I listen to these conspiracy claims, I just try to match it up. I like to hear the conspiracy claim and then try to read the mainstream media article about it and then make up my mind. So, for example, I saw a lot of talk on Twitter about how something like 158,000 votes suddenly were awarded to Joe Biden. And I kept seeing this again and again and again. Yeah, it looks very suspicious. And then I saw a clarification that there was a typo and it was quickly fixed. And then I was seeing a lot of conspiracy talk on Twitter about how in Arizona, people in one Trump-heavy voting district were given Sharpies to fill out their ballot, and that somehow this invalidated the ballots. So I kept seeing this over and over and over again. I kept an open mind to it, and people started talking about Sharpiegate, and then eventually there came along a mainstream media deconstruction saying that's nonsense, that a Sharpie would work just fine for filling out the ballot in Arizona. So I like to hear the wingnut conspiracy theories. Then I like to hear the mainstream media's critique and then make up my own mind. Okay, Ethan Ralph tweets from Milwaukee City Wire. Never heard of Milwaukee City Wire, so I have no idea how reliable it is. 7 Milwaukee wards report more than 2020 presidential votes than registered voters. Biden nets 146,000 votes in the city. Yeah, it's quite weird that 90% of eligible voters in Wisconsin voted. Like, that's unheard of. That strikes me as highly unprecedented. So I would like to read a mainstream media analysis of that. Wisconsin apparently had a 90% voter turnout, and that is hard to believe. Okay, so if you're getting overly obsessed by this election and you're neglecting things that you should pay more attention to, such as your responsibilities to your job or to your family, getting enough sleep and exercise and eating right, This is not a one-off problem. It's not the election, bro. It's not because the Cowboys have lost their top two quarterbacks and they're having to start an absolutely terrible rookie quarterback against the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday. Right? If you're acting out because of these unprecedented events, it's not the unprecedented event, it's you. It's a systemic problem in your character. Stress reveals character probably much more than stress creates character. So if you are black-pilled, I notice many people on Twitter, and I notice many of them are alcoholics. And if you're not an alcoholic, there's some similar sickness in your soul. You're black-pilled on an ongoing basis. It has nothing to do with outside circumstances. It has nothing to do with the election, and has everything to do with the state of your soul. So how is your soul? Press 1 if your soul is in good working order. Press 2 if your soul is sullied. Press 3 if your soul is just an absolute wreck. So times like these, you notice I don't have a lot of opinions, just a handful. So it seems like humility is good. And what is humility? Humility means living in reality. What happens when you leave reality? You get humiliated. If you're not getting humiliated regularly, congratulations, you live in reality because you are humble. You ever lose touch with a proper amount of humility, you ever lose touch with reality, you'll inevitably become humiliated. So in difficult times like this, it seems to me the more things in life that you are passionate about, the better off you're going to be when things don't go your way. If you love politics, but now, say, Donald Trump is out of power, your team is out of power, then it's time to get passionate about other things such as religion or hobbies or your work, making money, recovery, learning, reading books, studying Torah. If you love sports and your favorite teams are all losing, then you get passionate about something else. So Donald Trump's rise and subsequent election has unleashed a tremendous amount of energy in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Americans, including me. I have fed off Trump's energy for the past 5 years. So that high may be coming to an end. What's going to be left? Okay. So I'm going to have to taper off that high perhaps and return to normality. So I follow my sports teams more closely when they win because that brings me pleasure. When they lose, I kind of back off because that just hurts me. I think many of the arguments against Donald Trump are strong ones. I do think that Donald Trump is manifestly was and probably is in many ways unsuited for office, that he has some very significant character issues. And so I don't think it's deranged and completely disconnected from reality that much of the country hates Trump. And Steve Saylor did an excellent analysis of Trump's character. So it's in Tacky Mag. What teams do I follow? I am a Los Angeles Dodgers fan. I am a Los Angeles Lakers fan. And I am a Dallas Cowboys fan. Yes, Joe Biden has character issues as well. So I like what Scott Adams says. Take Donald Trump and remove everything that's good about him, and what you get is Joe Biden. This is a little more important than a football team, bro. Yes, it is to the wider society, but as for you individually, it's not. Because who the next president is not going to affect your life very much. Who the next president is not going to affect your life much more than the fate of your favorite football team. And your ability to affect who the next president will be is about equal to your ability to affect how your favorite football team plays, which is next to zero. Globalization is a runaway train. There's no stopping it. Okay, so we might have to be willing to adjust ourselves to reality. Glib says, I look forward to Fox being shamed for their Arizona call. But what if they're right about Arizona? Should they then be shamed simply for leading the pack? Have I seen the C-SPAN videos of Joe Biden and the young girls he manhandles? Yes. I think that I tend to agree with Scott Adams that Joe Biden is like Donald Trump if you simply take away all of Donald Trump's good points. Donald Trump is the first politician I remember where the press routinely inserts editorial comments or fact-checking comments. So how many headlines have we seen where the press says that Donald Trump falsely claimed this? Like, he's still getting widely censored on Twitter. The president of the United States is not able to tweet and have his tweets get shared. A dozen of his tweets over the past 12 hours have been censored by Twitter. And think of all the times the press now just routinely tells you Donald Trump falsely says this, falsely claimed that. I never recall the news media doing this with any other politician. And I think we all take it for granted that politicians routinely lie, exaggerate, or simply say things that are not true. But when have you seen the news media routinely add falsely claimed, falsely said whenever they report in news stories about a president? So I look forward to them doing the same thing for Joe Biden. For example, when Joe Biden claimed a black man invented the light bulb, I don't remember, that was about a month ago. Did the press routinely state that Joe Biden falsely claimed that a black man invented the light bulb? I don't remember that.
All right, we should be live. Welcome to the stream. When I set this up, I wasn't sure what time to do it, what the election would be looking like. I was asking people in the US for opinions. There's people telling me that this was too late, that I missed all the action because Trump would have conceded by more than time in the US, and other people were telling me it was a landslide. But as it turned out, it's still quite eventful what's going on. We still don't have a winner. I'll just give you my impression before I introduce the guest. So I stayed up quite late last night. As it came close to the election, Biden's odds shortened a lot. It looked like they thought he was a lock. And then suddenly, the vote comes in and suddenly Trump is winning Florida. He's going way ahead in Georgia, North Carolina, and all these states. And suddenly people are realizing this is another 2016, if not worse, in terms of how badly the polling got wrong. And by, I'd say, 2 a.m. my time, people were basically celebrating a Trump win. They're like, okay, Trump is actually going to run away with this. I went on the kill stream last night around like 2:30 my time. And actually, as I was going off, I made a prediction that this would keep accelerating, Trump would keep shortening, and that at some point he'd declare victory. And then the mail-in ballots would come in and it'd start swinging Biden's direction and we'd have a contested election. And it looks like that's...
So this was streamed about 7 hours ago. And Laponius says, I'm me, you're you, I'm me, you're me, we're all one, bro. Mimi says, the press will never go after Joe. Come on, man. And was Richard Spencer the big winner last night? Was Richard Spencer's endorsement the key factor in getting Joe Biden over the top? Mimi says the censorship going on is frightening, not just for Trump's tweets. So I wonder if we're just going to get new forms of technology that will be much less censorious. So extensions of BitChute, for example. So you can pretty much say anything on BitChute and on Gab. So maybe we'll increasingly have our conversations there. Josh says, I feel sorry for all the poor souls fettered with political anxiety. I've transcended it because I'm me. Luke, are you worried about getting the Ron Jeremy treatment if you accidentally criticize China? No. Stating that the president does not affect you is a hallmark of straight, white, male, cis privilege and not indicative of the lived reality of racialized bodies. Presidents make policy, bro. Yeah, but how many of those policies are, say, as important in your life as your boss's policies or the policies of the company where you work at? I would think for the average person, I would hope that there are probably 10 things in their life far more important to them, 20 things, maybe 50 things far more important to them than the president. Like for a normal person, I would suspect their relationship with their spouse is, far more important than who the president is. Okay, Rodney Martin is joining us. Rodney, what are your thoughts? Rodney, can you hear me? Okay, maybe it's on my end, so let me check it out here, bro.
Hey, how's that, Luke? How's that?
Yeah. Yep, I hear you now. So what are your thoughts?
Okay. I'm trying something new. I'm running this through my car system because I'm actually traveling today. But, you're just asking if there's going to be new platforms that are less censorious. By the way, that's an awesome word. Yahoo used to have Yahoo groups, which would allow people to, I know that what was left of Ross Perot's old Reform Party used to use Yahoo groups. But Yahoo just got rid of those. So, I just don't know where we're going. This is why this election was very important, which is why, like I told you, for the first time in my life, I voted a straight ticket to send a message, even voting against Democrats that I personally know and have had long-term, friendships and relationships with. But I felt it important to send a message. But as far as communication, I've long been of the opinion that people that are in dissident politics, and let me assure you, what's going to happen now if Biden is allowed to squat in the White House, he will unleash his Justice Department and such and treat Trump supporters like white nationalists, essentially. I mean, if you think Richard Spencer and company got the treatment, just wait till you have the very petty, emotionally retarded, mentally unstable people in the left, which we see every day, in charge of the levers of government. This is one of my criticisms of Donald Trump, was he never staffed up the executive branch, and in some cases, he left these Trojan horses in office. And the evidence of that is there was recently a leaked Zoom conference where you had a bunch of lower level and mid-level federal bureaucrats talking about how they were going to gum up the system if Trump doesn't concede and won re-election. So as far as communication, I've long been of the opinion that dissident people in dissident politics need to not expose themselves. One, for instance, all these Discord servers, Luke, that always mysteriously get exposed and are subject to litigation and subject to shaming and subject to people getting fired. They're just not good platforms. That there should be something. Perhaps somebody should set something up offshore, say in Iceland, Norway, Russia, where the servers are out of reach, and come up with something that is more user friendly and more not going to say secure, but that is open to free expression of ideas. I had another issue. I've long thought that Twitter and Facebook have exposure legally under the case Pruneyard Shopping Center v. Robbins, which was a case where the Supreme Court ruled if you invite the public there, then you are a public space and are bound by the First Amendment. And that's just never been tried. It's been tried successfully in the commercial realm, which is why in California you have you cannot tell a person gathering petition signatures to get out of the shopping center, get out of the mall, get out from in front of Walmart. It's because of that very court ruling. So there's a lot of work to be done. I think that unless Trump wins these legal battles and wins these recounts, there's going to be two things are going to have to happen or will happen. One, Trump supporters face being in the wilderness and being persecuted like white nationalists. And Mitch McConnell had better not reach his hand out in an effort of reconciliation to Biden if Biden is allowed to squat in the White House. It had better be total El Deguayo and no quarter, and everything that Biden sends is dead on arrival. I mean, this includes his judges. I mean, I'd even gum up his cabinet appointees, and especially any cabinet appointees that comes from the never Trump Republicans like John Kasich and some of the other names that Biden has floated. The Republicans are going to have to find a spine and a backbone and be as ideologically dedicated and ruthless as the left is. Otherwise, they're going to go the way of the Whig Party.
And I got a question for you. In Wisconsin, there was 90% turnout. That just seems off the hook.
Well, it's bullshit, Luke. Pardon me, I don't mean to violate terms of service, but the larger issue was we now are seeing videos come up from elections areas where election workers were opening ballots, looking at them, and throwing certain ones in the garbage. We've seen two videos that surface. Also, Wisconsin reported more turnout than actual registered voters. And they had a problem with that. I mean, last time I remember that happening is when Arizona first rolled out its, the ability to vote by mail absentee and to check the box to say you want to permanently get your ballot. There was a big write-up. You might be able to find it in the archives in the USA Today. But the city of San Luis, Arizona, there was a big story. It piqued the interest of then Attorney General Grant Woods, who went and investigated and charged several people. But they had 2 and 3 times more ballots requested than they had registered voters. And it just so happens that the city of San Luis is right across is 10 feet across the border from San Luis, Arizona, San Luis, Rio, Colorado, Sonora, Mexico. So when someone says, "Oh, there's no voter fraud in mail-in ballots," my position has long been the chain of custody is so weak that you can literally go to the cemetery, copy down a bunch of names, and then use share addresses. If you get 50 people to go in on it and say, "Let's go get 50 more names from the cemetery and allow them to use our address," all these Secretary of States look at is a person at that address, and will someone verify the address? Well, yeah. And this is what they were finding in San Luis, not to mention in the San Luis case, they were getting Mexican nationals to register to vote, and were using the San Luis, Arizona address. But it was 2 or 3 times, I believe it was close to 3 times more ballots had been sent to individuals than they had registered voters. And when they got down and stripped it all away, they found out that 3/4 of them were fraudulent.
Yeah. So
I mean, this is it's a big mountain. Here's a problem with with Trump faces is once somebody once you create this momentum that of inevitability, then what they're trying to paint Trump as a sore loser. And Richard Nixon faced this very same issue in 1960 when he knew that he had been robbed by John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson. He knew that Daley in Chicago had stuffed ballot boxes. He knew that Lyndon Johnson's machine in Texas had stuffed ballot boxes. But Nixon made the conscious decision that he would concede and fight another day because he didn't want to, quote, rip the country apart and didn't want to have a label. This was Nixon's own words, by the way. He didn't want to be tarnished as a sore loser in case his challenge didn't work out. But Nixon seriously considered challenging the 1960 election and then backed out later. It was Thomas Dewey that actually talked him, the 3-time loser or 2-time loser, talked him out of it. Nixon actually had done some work with Thomas Dewey in private law practice.
Okay, Rodney, I'm going to say goodbye to you now, unless you have any final comments.
No, I just think it's a time to see exactly what Trump supporters are made out of. I think that if Biden's allowed to squat in the White House, he's entitled to the same 4 years of treatment that the Democrats and the left gave Trump.
Okay, Rodney, take care. I'll talk to you later, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, Dooovid, do you have any reactions to the election? Did you pay any attention?
I tried to pay as little attention as possible, but I followed the basic. I'm a pretty informed person and follow the news. Being that Rodney was just on, and I even called Babs today. I was just looking for someone to speak to, so I ended up calling him. And maybe this is the trigger for balkanization. I'm libertarian. I became a libertarian in high school and never really changed my opinion on the issue. I didn't actually vote libertarian, although I think that woman Jan got over 1% in Michigan. Because generally I just see these people as incompetent, and I don't want any of them, in charge. Although, I could understand issue by issue. I could see this being a real mess. Like just like my chess mind, my conspiratorial mind, every scenario that I analyze looks bad for everybody. Like I don't see any scenario like where we all hold hands and try to bring society together. But generally I'm pretty cataclysmic in my views anyways. I assume you are also. So, when God forbid, when people start killing each other on the street, I don't think I'm going to be surprised either. But the level of distrust is it's hard to know. It's really hard to know what's going on.
And what did you notice about the reactions of people around you?
Well, really, my parents are the only ones I deal with, and I think they were shocked a little bit that that Trump is so close, and they're liberal leaning, thinking like Trump's going to try to steal the election, and we got to get rid of him because I guess they're both professional. My parents are a doctor and lawyer, and to the professional standards, a guy like Trump doesn't meet their criteria of maintaining those professional standards, and they just can't accept that. So Biden, any of the problems, like he at least generally has that professional decorum. But at the same time, like my parents are boomers. They're not well informed on certain changes. They're reliant on old technology. The old mass media, New York Times, and probably will never move into new sources of information at their age. And because of COVID-19, the only other thing I have is from the web. So I'm not. Social media seems kind of quiet. The local liberal Jews, I was on a call, and I was surprised. They're like, even COVID-19, they're very active in Detroit, in probably making sure Biden wins, votes and elections. So that these liberal Jewish groups, did not sit out their work during the election just because COVID-19. And so, like Rashida Tlaib said that she had an easy win against a Republican who never wins in that district, but her primary opponent was somewhat of a test, and not even that much. But they put in the paper that she was knocking on doors anyways. So most of the Jews I know, from modern Orthodox synagogue, we don't talk much now. Outdoor minyan, masks, like. I would have known, Kiddush Club and sitting next to people. Now COVID-19, we never talk. Like, we got masks, and no more talking during davening, no more Kiddush Club. And I don't know about you. It's just the web, or you have a feel. I could say in the streets, there's not many political signs. Even like I feel very little activity, like besides the news blasting it. It's hardly noticeable, like maybe one per few hundred houses do you see a political sign.
Yeah, and what do you know about election corruption in Michigan or in Detroit? Have you heard stories? Have you observed things? Have you read about it?
Yeah, so it's ironic because I mentioned on your show the main counting place is this Twin City Financial, the Gary Torgau, who I mentioned, who became a big banker, and Cobo, who I think was a former mayor of Detroit, that if you look up, was supposedly racist against blacks. And so Twin City Financial bought the naming rights of this public arena, and it's no longer Cobo Arena, it's Twin City Financial, and that was in coalition with the NAACP. And so I mentioned, I'm sure there's quite a few Orthodox Jews that voted for Trump, but the coalition here is the Orthodox Jewish community is even like, brothers with the NAACP. But that is where the votes are being counted. I think I probably know some people that are doing it. Some of the Jews are pretty active. I guess there's hundreds of people counting ballots. There's observers. The news said both Democrats and Republicans are protesting, trying to get pushed inside. I got here in Michigan, like starting months ago, stuff like constantly to vote. And I don't remember years back getting that much, maybe like one letter, but I think I got like, the actual ballot a few times. I got letters, I got forms. So it could be a mess. And even if it's like, let's say Biden wins, and it's funny because it's a Jewish woman, Dana Nessel, and also the Secretary of State is a Jewish woman. I'm not friendly, but I've met both of them face to face, and actually, kind of these overachiever, lawyer, female woman, and they sent out millions of ballots for people to vote by mail. And you could assume that like there's transparency and honesty, but it's tough to know. And Trump was calling it out back then, like don't do it. And the state won the battle. So, even if Biden wins, Trump's claim is largely valid that it happened because they sent out millions of ballots to people, and and people went door to door and helped them fill out these forms and stuff like that. And say, okay, maybe that's democracy, maybe it's not. The courts will decide. I don't picture Biden being competent, really. Like, I don't picture Biden having the competency to run a national anything. I mean, he might be competent enough to, be professional and allocate to other people, but I can't picture Biden being competent. So it leads to conspiracies of shadow forces, because kind of like, what are the shadow forces that are really behind Biden? And then if you say there's shadow forces, like you could see Antifa and things like Russia hacking, maybe our elections could be stolen. So I wouldn't, say like Trump, it's known, but it wouldn't surprise me if, some external negative force that donated hundreds of millions of dollars to Biden also found a way to, rig hundreds of thousands of ballots, and they might have done it in a legal way. In a way, say if it's like George Soros, and it's funny that Sheriff Opiro appeared on Chuck Moss a second time this week, but he said George Soros personally spent $3 million against him on attack ads, but there's a lot of money behind Biden, so they could have legally won over the Secretary of State, sent the ballots to all these people, and they could have paid people to knock on doors and fill out these forms and send them in for them, and it might not be illegal, but it's really difficult to know, and I don't think you're going to get much information looking at the news, even reading the New York Times or the periodicals. So you have to go to questionable sources, and they're questionable for good reason, because it's hard to know whether to believe them or not. And that's why I say, like, let's just learn Torah. I could plan for cataclysm. Like, I'm a Jew, God forbid. Like, how could there be another Holocaust in America? And so, well, obviously, God forbid, of course, there could be another Holocaust in America. So, like, could this be the scenario that triggers the Civil War and the decline of America? It could be a big event like this that does it. But to some extent, it's like when the federal government shuts down in general. Like, I'm a libertarian. You don't even notice because they don't do crap anyways, but steal your money.
And how did you spend election eve? How did you spend last night?
It's funny. Like, I fell sick about 8 o'clock. I had your show on in the background, and I just felt weak, and I fell asleep, and I got up at like 4 a.m. and checked, and I saw that it was still tied. So I didn't. And honestly, I was thinking, I was upset a little bit. It kind of felt like Yom Kippur in some weird metaphysical way, and I was telling myself, honestly, I don't care who wins, Biden or Trump. And I didn't even check. And then, in the morning I checked, and I'm a quick reader, and I could keep up with the news and see what's going on. But like, honestly, I didn't really care who wins.
And what's going on with COVID and lockdowns around you?
Oh, pardon me. The Michigan Supreme Court eventually, it was a ballot initiative where I think they had hundreds of thousands, at least 400,000 signatures to repeal some law that the governor's unilateral emergency powers were based on. Because I guess the governor, to have emergency powers to enforce a lockdown, has to have agreement with the legislator, and the legislator in Michigan is very Republican, and they couldn't come to an agreement. So she had done some lockdown based on some law, and enough people in a ballot initiative signed to have it removed. And then the Republican legislator was able to pass that without the option of a governor veto. So that's the logistics of right now in Michigan. There's no official emergency orders. Although in my area, Oakland County, if people are familiar, where the majority of the Jews live, there's county restrictions. So it's unlikely that they're going to be able to force a lockdown. I go to Starbucks. Most places are closed. Cases are definitely ticking up. I think about elections, everyone wanted everybody to vote so much. Like, I'm one of the rare people who just doesn't buy it. But I think everybody on the right and the left was so concerned with people voting that we're probably going to have a huge spike. And also, if this drags out, it might also increase the spike. I think the local Orthodox day school had to shut down for a day or two. It's getting worse, and it's probably going to keep on getting worse. Like, here we got 3,000 day caseload, and it wouldn't surprise me if that pops to 10,000 caseload. And the question, God forbid, is the death toll going to follow? Like, as of now, the death toll has been much lower, and it's unclear. I mean, with the number of cases, the number of deaths is almost certainly going to tick up. But could it tick up to huge amounts? And I guess Israel somehow they were, like 5,000 cases a day. I think they even had like 8,000 cases one day, and now they're back under 1,000 after having like a 2-week full lockdown. And so I think that's the way most countries are going to go. Although I don't think the U.S., with our government system, is going to be able to have a strong hand government that is going to force lockdown. So it's unclear. Like, God forbid, I wouldn't be surprised. Like, let's say this election thing ends up in the courts or counts and recounts, that drags on a few weeks, that the death count may start picking up, in the next few weeks. I'm not sure if you're following the experts or the opinions, but the surge in cases, the death count lagging by a few weeks, and also just getting colder. So I would almost picture COVID's going to be a bigger issue than the election, but because of the nature of the American politics, even the liberal media knows that it's not a good idea to focus on COVID right now because they want to put Biden in the White House. So they're going to just put COVID-19 on a back burner until they get Biden to the White House, unless somehow Trump wins. And if Trump wins, all you hear about is COVID again and again.
So how efficient and effective is the government in Detroit and Michigan?
None at all. I'm saying, like, we have a citizenry self-functioning. So the government is largely ineffectual in everything they do. And that's not just me speaking as a libertarian, but like, the Detroit government went bankrupt. The public schools are, bankrupt and taken over by the government. The Detroit police force is relatively decent, but like Michigan, we had the Flint water crisis. The dam just burst. There's water problems like lead, not just in Flint, but in other places. The roads have gotten worse. Like, the Governor Whitmore campaign was like, fix the damn roads. And that, I think, was over 2 years ago, and the roads have gotten worse. So I think most people recognize that the government's largely incompetent in everything they do. However, there's really no place to turn to. Even Obamacare, I was under Obamacare, and I haven't paid a few years, and I don't think that really helped too many people out either. Like, even in Michigan, Detroit, it's unclear how many people really benefited from Obamacare, but there might be some people who disagree on that. But still, despite all of that, everybody is still largely turning to the government to fix their problems. But I think that underhandedly, at least in the suburbs, like the manufacturing, certain areas of Michigan, people just aren't looking to the government. We're expecting the government to be incompetent, and we're looking, to manage. Like, I need the post office to operate. I run an eBay business, so the post office has to stay open, or I have to look into a new line of work. But like, largely, other than that, like, the government could shut down, and it wouldn't affect me.
And how's your eBay business coming along?
Thank God, pretty good. I sold a lot of my more expensive items. I didn't buy myself the MacBook because, like, I'm not sure if I really need it. But I might invest, if I'm going to stream and buy equipment for that. But I sold some of my more expensive stuff to put aside money for that. Now I'm selling kind of single CDs, but I'm making still I think I like $20-$50 a day just from my eBay business. So it doesn't take that much time. So highly recommend I don't know what we call it residual income, but part-time income that could add. And plus I keep my eBay business in good standing so that in a month or two, sometime I come across more valuable products, I'll have an eBay account in good standing to be possible to profit from more expensive items that now I'm just selling single CDs from like $2 to $10. Most of what I'm selling is like $2 to $3, but it's a good day's work. I pay for my food and expenses. I do a little property management also, but saying just to wrap and ship out 5 to 10 CDs a day, highly recommended if people could use excess income. And it's also just a stability in my life because I hardly see anybody, but I'm active, I'm in the business world, so to say.
And how would you feel about a mandatory vaccine when, let's say, everybody has to get vaccinated for COVID? Let's say they come up with one and then they require everyone to get vaccinated. How would you feel about that?
Well, I'm libertarian. I'm against mandatory anything. Generally, I'm neutral in vaccines. I'm skeptical, but generally go with authority. So I've read a lot of material on it, and I remain skeptical because I'm skeptical of evolution, but not enough to go against authority or recommend against getting vaccines. But generally, even if it's death, I would probably still be a libertarian. Like people have a right to, God forbid, ruin our own lives, even to the matter of death. And I wouldn't, and even harming others, like the level of a vaccine. It's a tough call. I wear my mask. I was thinking about it today. To be friendly to others. God forbid I didn't go to Outdoor Minion. I went, my grandmother passed away, God forbid. I mean, she was 91. I went to the funeral and someone there tested positive for COVID. Even though I, took the precautions, I didn't even go to Outdoor Minion. Even though it would have been Outdoor Minion, I would have had my mask on. And I could have gotten tested. I didn't get tested. I didn't show any symptoms. But I just try to be considerate, especially, it's easy for me. So I don't mind doing the regulations, but at the same time, I would not want to be forced to do it. And I do a lot of other things, that people don't like. So, generally I'll respect the libertarian, line. Like the original arguments I was on your channel of Jakey Jake with like homosexuality or something like that. Generally, I'm going to toe the libertarian line.
And have you discovered any new great varieties of marijuana?
For some reason, there was like a little drought here recently and the prices went up. But yeah, the quality has drastically improved. If anyone's a smoker, like the very high quality stuff from decades ago, it's just easy to get. And the THC content has like exponentially increased. You could get like 30% THC content. And, I don't think that was like 20 years ago, you would have got 10%, but, now that it's being grown in mass and there's so many different strands and mixes and experts growing. So I'm trying to limit it, because of quarantine and just the uncertainty, I assume you also life is very uncertain right now. And, it's like, do I want to invest in in streaming? Do I want to keep my money in cash just because society might collapse? Or, it's a huge amount of uncertainty right now. And, so that's conducive to large amounts of marijuana use. So I'm trying to limit it. And obviously now it's just easy. I know everybody I know could basically get me weed at a good price and I could just walk in, to a dispensary and get it at relatively cheaper. I don't want to talk prices here. If you want, I could tell you the going prices. I guess it's legal also in California. So I mean, if you want to know how much it goes for here,
Sure.
I can tell you.
Yeah. How much does it go for in Michigan?
I like to get high quality stuff for less than $10 a gram. So if I get like an ounce for 240 of high grade stuff, you could get really good quality stuff, but good grade, high THC content stuff, medical quality, you shouldn't have to pay more than $10 a gram. If you buy it at the dispensary without a medical license, it's more expensive. So it's usually, you could only get an eighth. If you're just a recreational user, you could only get an eighth at a time, and an eighth is usually like $50 to $60, $70. So you're paying, an eighth is 3.5 grams. So it could be as much as $20 a gram. So if you just buy 1 gram, it's like $15, $20. Which, saying like, okay, you buy in quantity because you want to get a better rate. And, but you could legally purchase it from other people. So that, like, there's a lot of people who grow, and there's a lot of people, you're like saying, like, if you were in my house and you sold it to me, we can't really be arrested for it, and I legally have the right to have it. So besides for going to the dispensary, there's just a ton of people who have it, and it's for sale, and you could get the high quality stuff. Although there was a brief period of a drought and prices went up, and I was paying like $15 a gram. And like, honestly, like, I'm cheap. Like, to me, it's a mitzvah. It's no mitzvah to pay full price. So when I was paying like $15 a gram, I was upset about that because, like, I thought like I should be able to get it cheaper, but I needed it, so I couldn't get it at the price I want. Sometimes, I don't know like how you are in cheapness, Luke, but sometimes, like, if I don't get my price, I don't buy it. Like, there's only so much I'm going to pay for it, and anything more than that, I'm just going to pass on it. And then, sometimes it's like I need it, and if the price goes up, I might have to do it with a lower quantity, or I might have to rework my finances because it's God forbid, like in LA, something like pornography could probably be like that, or stuff that you're much more an expert on than I am. But there's usually a level where it's just like anything more than this, I'll just pass on it. I could live without it. But sometimes you're at a level where when the prices go up, you don't have a choice. That's my medicine, and if the prices go up, I'll have to pay more.
Right. Yeah, I get it. And do you get it? Do you prefer it as an edible or as a vape, or how do you prefer it?
I went back to smoking. Like, really, I keep on wanting to. I think I would have quit if it wasn't for COVID-19. I was almost down to not smoking again. But usually, I either bong or roll up joints. I don't smoke huge amounts. If I'm really get stoned, maybe I'll smoke like 3 or 4 joints a day. And as I said, but usually it's like less than 1 a day. And as I said, the THC content has vastly increased. I got a water bong and a 1-hitter. I have vape. I don't really do edibles. There's other like oils and different things. Because I keep on planning on quitting. Like, I don't want to smoke weed my whole life. And I thought if COVID-19 hadn't happened, I might have been able to kick it. But I know other people that have invested, and they got, the fancy, gadgets and oils, and there's a whole bunch of different ways. I'm not sure if in your area you got, buddies that have all the latest paraphernalia and gadgets.
No, I don't know anything. Nobody ever does it around me. I never talk about it with anyone. You're the first person I've really spoken to about it.
There's a lot of Orthodox Jews who, I mean, it's a sub-circuit. We talked about that because, like, in the internal Orthodox world, like, it's a no-no, and you're a bum if you do it. You can't be like a good guy within the inner circles of Orthodox Judaism and smoke weed. Like, maybe if you're like a Star for Israel or something, like, they'll let you get away with it. But in the outer circuits of like OTD or, the people that don't learn, marijuana smoking among Orthodox Jews is possibly even more common than among whites.
Yeah.
But it's a sub-circuit.
Mm-hmm. So what books have you been reading in the past month?
I ordered. I think I told you the books I was reading. I'm really trying to understand Stephen Wolfram. I don't know if you follow him at all.
No.
And I mean, he's more technical, so he's got like these textbooks, and Church of Entropy Week in Review. We've been getting much more technical into math and science, so I've been reading still a lot of these papers, and they're online. I haven't studied much Judaism, unfortunately. I guess the lack of being around Jews. So I haven't. I fell away, and I honestly the last few weeks I hadn't really been reading that much, and maybe I've been playing a lot of chess, and it could also be like my eyesight or something. Like I hit like kind of a mental overload, so I read a lot, and then occasionally I have to take a few weeks off where I really only follow news or catch up on important things without really reading. I don't know if you're steady like that, or you hit periods where you just got to take a few weeks off of reading.
Definitely dips and rises. So, do you prefer physical books or ebooks?
I prefer physical books, but I'm reading more and more online just because, why waste the money? And a lot of the stuff that I'm reading is just online and available. But I think you have to, right now there's so much happening that at a period, even like the Holocaust and World War II and various things that usually I read probably 20, 10 books a year, maybe 20 books a year on World War II and the Holocaust, or, European history. Like I'm constantly reading books on, medieval Enlightenment Jewry or some rabbinic personality, or just history, and even like science and engineering, philosophy. But I think with all what's happening in the world right now, it's more difficult to, just like, and I don't read fiction, so I don't lose myself really in literature. But say with all the uncertainty right now, is it really useful to read like another book on the Holocaust, another book on World War II? And maybe you're doing that. I'm not sure. In all this, are you still like reading books on World War II?
Yeah, that's what I do for fun. So, I mean, that's probably no more than 5% of my reading, but it's kind of like a fun read. Then I also do another 5% of sports books. So I find that a lot of fun. And I just read a book on Lucy Davidowitz. She wrote the book, The War Against the Jews, about the Holocaust. I don't know if you've ever heard of Lucy Davidowitz.
I have one of her books. Her name's familiar, but I'm not sure which book of hers I have.
Yeah. And so right now I'm reading a book by George Gilder, who says that he talks about essentially life after Google. So he says that Google's not going to be around. It's not going to dominate for that long. So,
did you see that link I sent you? Devin Nash, the gaming expert who talked about the Twitch purge going on.
Yeah, I did. But was there anything in that you wanted to mention?
Well, it appeared that Twitch might go under, and that in the relation, it's not like a censorship purge. It's basically copyright, where most gamers play music in the background, and if you weren't playing like the most famous music, they didn't bother you on it. But now they're cracking down on those laws, and YouTube has this notification where you just play something. If there's something copyright, it informs you immediately, and usually there's no problem. Either YouTube could remove it for you, or it could just pass the money on to the copyright holder. But Twitch doesn't have that available, and if people don't delete their entire library, they're getting banned. So it started happening, and a lot of the biggest gamers on Twitch have went down. And I guess as of now, the model is, I mean, gaming is way bigger than news. Like me and, like Luke is news, which is more interesting than Dooovid, who's more, like science and spirituality. But gaming is by far the biggest on, not just YouTube, but Twitch. But it could be that this censorship law on Twitch doesn't have the technology, and their numbers, I guess they're losing money anyways, that it looks like they may go under. And not sure what that matters for YouTube, if YouTube will reach out and try to recruit these gamers. And if they do, yeah, it may not be relevant for what we're doing. Because we're in the business. And like I was telling Charles Moskowitz, he called me up and asked me what happened to the video. So I told him, like, you switched your business model. Now you got like a, paywall, you take your videos down, and you got to do what you got to do to survive. And, we're not in the gaming business, but, I think that it might be relevant, moving forward.
Right. And what's been going on with your streaming life? Any great shows that you've been on or that you've hosted yourself?
No, I had Babs on a little back. Like I streamed a little bit of chess, a little bit of my research. I have a little audience for that, but nothing great. Church of I'm actually, me and Church of Entropy this week started discussing the outline for my book, and it's actually a philosophical, like scientific book that's going to be called Multiple Truth Hypothesis. So I'm advancing this theory in the research, and so we have a little audience, but and we talk our ideas, and she talks her ideas. And we had interesting guests every once in a while. Gandalf actually came back this week. I guess whatever his personal life, he was back on Week in Review. But it's not really going anywhere in terms of profit. We never get more than a few hundred views. Church of Entropy still hasn't got 1,000 subs yet to monetize. It's unclear that's the direction. So it's more, I guess in Hebrew we call it like a chabura, just like a group of friends or people of similar ideas where we get together to talk, largely giving up the hope of being able to profitably stream, like unless something changes. But I think now the climate makes it near impossible. Charles Moskowitz, I like talking with him, and we talk mostly Torah. So as long as he wants to keep on doing that, I'll keep on doing it. Just like you, as long as you want to talk Torah, I'm probably down for that. If you decide you want to keep with the politics till this thing is over, I was joking in the chat, like, if not now, when? Because that's the liberal Jewish organization. But Luke says Dooovid will go back to Torah when this is over, but it might not be over. It could be like 6 months from now, and this election thing might still go. But whatever you decide to do, I'm down on the possibility that we're going to be able to draw a big audience for us to learn Torah. But if you want to learn Torah for a small audience, I'm still down with that. I'm actually still watching Mark Shapiro's videos. Like, relatively, he puts out some of the better videos out there, even though I disagree with his, I guess, Hashkafa worldview.
And there's a question in the chat if I read Benjamin Teitelbaum's book on Steve Bannon. Yes, I did. And I've listened to some interviews with Ben Teitelbaum. What do you feel like when you're not on marijuana?
I usually feel fine, but I think I need something to do. So if I have nothing to do, my mind always operates extremely quickly. And, so if I had activity, some activity requires me a little bit of marijuana, but now it's more just the idle time. And like, said, like I'm hearing voices, like I'm going crazy. Like, I'm not a dangerous crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's been like what, 8 months now that we've been on lockdown. Like, even going to synagogue, I haven't spoken to anybody more than like 10 words with a mask on. Thank God, like, I'm not broke, I'm not poor. Like, if I were broke and poor, God forbid, like, I got a house, like, I'm actually doing better in my business. Thank God I'm not complaining. But like, yeah, I don't know about you, but like, I think I'm hearing voices, and I just smoke weed, and like, honestly, I pace back and forth hours and hours during the day. I just pace back and forth, and I don't know what else I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. And
I don't know if you talk about this or if it's much. I mean, like if it's too risque for you to talk about it, but you
no, it's fascinating. It's great.
I mean, is there like a one in the chat if you also spend like hours every day pacing back and forth, or is Dooovid the only one who does that?
No, I'm sure there are a lot of people who do. Do you think that your use of marijuana has cost you IQ points?
I've been extremely successful at chess recently, so it hasn't affected my chess, which really requires extremely quick processing speeds, and I haven't been internationally competitive, so like I just sit around and play chess, but I'm competing with people all over the world and putting together respectable performances. So plus I'm reading and I'm putting out like I think I'm going to write a book, and I think I've but I don't think I'd recommend it. Like I don't think it's good for my intellectual. I have heartburn. Like I might regret it. Like I do want to quit, but I would have to say that my intellectual capability seems to be quite high still. Thank God.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And there's a comment in the chat. Josh says most cannabis users I talk to say that they have way too much mental traffic when they're not high. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm an Orthodox Jew. Like I do Hindu chants. I have a lot of things that I've worked on meditation to be able to control my mind, and I think it's largely related to just idle time. And it's like, yeah, I mean, would I be better off if and now's the time I could read like 100 books on the Holocaust, or even like the Roman times, or even master certain fields of calculus and mathematics that I never had time. I'd probably be a better man, but I can't. And it's a crutch. Like I would never recommend it to somebody, but life and suffering, and you need a crutch, and it's hard to be constantly productive. But I think when I have like when things are going good, and like I don't need to smoke weed. You're saying that if I had good jobs, I was getting up to have business appointments and meet people who like me, and going to social events where no one else was was high. But it's like Halsey was asking me about Adam Green, and it was like, dude, I live in Detroit. Like that sound Adam Green and his conspiracies theories to me sound normal. Like 1 out of 2 people I talk with, like that's what they sound like. So like I'm here in Detroit, like 30% of people smoke weed. Like even most it's extremely prevalent. I don't know that many people. But like no, I mean, it's b'diavad, as you say in Hebrew. It's a second best, and it's just indicative of the failures of the maximum, so to say, the maximization of our potential. And it's also because I don't have, like I'm an old bachelor. It's depressing. Like I would probably rather be like spending time with my kids, but maybe I wouldn't. I think Bill Mueller said it like that. Like I don't know if I'd like to be sitting here teaching my kid like ABCs and addition and arithmetic. But like sitting here smoking weed, like I don't think I'm awesome. I think like, oh, like I'm a failure. I didn't get married and have kids, and that's why I'm doing it.
And how do you spend an ordinary day?
I usually get up, use the restroom, wash the Neglavosser, brush my teeth.
What time? What time do you get up usually?
It varies. Usually between like 7:30 and 9. Which there had been a period a few years ago I was getting up later, like even later than 10, and decades ago I maybe slept late, but rarely I sleep past 9. I usually go upstairs to sleep by like midnight or 1, the latest, and I usually drink coffee and check the news. Like Maimonides, I like to evacuate before I take my shower, so I could be as clean as possible. That's all, like a coffee or read the news, make sure I could fully evacuate. Then I'll take my shower and get dressed, usually by like 10 or so, because I'm not usually in a big hurry. I manage a few properties, so not every day, but a few times a day, I have a little work, a few hours of just property management work to do. I usually do try to get that done first thing in the morning. I also my eBay. I almost always do my eBay. Like if I sold something now, I would I would probably after the show I would have it out and I would have it wrapped for tomorrow morning. Like usually, anytime I sell something, like I won't put off more than a few hours to wrap it up and put the label on. So I in the morning also I usually make sure wrap up and print out the shipping labels on all the stuff I've sold and take it to the post office on the way to do my property management. And sometimes if I get home, these days I've been playing a lot of chess, but I get home maybe so usually I don't smoke weed till the afternoon, after I've already taken care of all of my daily responsibilities. But these days that could be by like 1 o'clock. Like I've already sent out all my eBay stuff, managed the properties, and 1 o'clock I'm done. I don't have anything to do till the next day. And so I'm playing chess or just pacing back and forth. It's hard to study hours and hours every day. And that's why I need talking to you. If we were streaming, I would be reading more, because it's hard to just fill my head with information, even just to memorize it. I don't even know if I'd be able. It might just go in, one ear out the next. I mean, however, I wouldn't really internalize it. You need to have a circle of people you're talking about it with. So maybe it's also because we haven't been streaming that much that I've decreased in my reading. And Church of Entropy is not really a big reader. She understands science and mathematics really well, but we don't really talk about like books that we've read. So I think that's also indicative that if we start streaming, I'll start reading more, because I need people to discuss it with to make it interesting.
Oh, yeah. Why do you think Jen doesn't read books? I don't get it. She's smart and she has lots of opinions on different things, but she doesn't read books. It's just, I don't get it. I know so many smart people and they just don't read books. I just can't imagine life without reading books.
Well, I think it's the diminishing returns of data. Because if it's like, you want to talk about World War II and it's like, you list a bunch of names and he's like, I have no idea who these people are, where these places are. I'm not educated or informed like that. Versus saying like, it's a limitless amount to know information. So a lot of people Jennifer's smart. She likes sciences and processes, but she doesn't really care for, data, so to say. So, me and you, you can't really talk without data. You need data to keep things interesting. You could, give a math course or a computer programming course just on processes. And, I think, Luke, that's why she likes your show, because you're not just data of the news, but you also have kind of these sociological, spiritual, maybe, Torah or conspiratorial processes of analyzing the data. But from her perspective, it's just an endless battle that when she starts studying history, when you're going to stop.
And how do you reward yourself when you've done hard work or you've done good things and it's time to take a break and reward yourself? Aside from, say, cannabis, how do you like to reward yourself?
These days I've been buying like vegetarian food, because like also eating is a big deal, because I just I cook the same things over and over again. And so today actually I I spent a good amount of money on like lunch, dinner. I went to this. I started also going to non-kosher places, ordering vegetarian online, and actually you get it delivered. Maybe you have the same places like Seamless or forget the names of these services, but you get delivered for a few dollars. And there's a few places that are kind of pricey but have very good vegetarian food. So that's about it. That's the only reward I get. Unfortunately, life
what
stuff
about desserts? Do you eat desserts?
No, I'm pretty weight conscious. Like I'm a tad overweight right now. Like I'm just over 200 pounds, and I'm 6 foot tall, and pretty strong relatively. So I may not even be overweight clinically, but like I'd be better off at 180. So I'm pretty careful not to eat sweets. And in fact, I started ordering online dried fruit. Actually, I got low calorie snacks because once I started ordering online, I figured like I'd look in to get low calorie snacks. I'm not going to eat like canola oil potato chips, and I found dried fruit actually because COVID-19. One thing, the fresh produce is harder to get, and if you order like Whole Foods or whatever, it's questionable. But I found that dry fruits are very good. So surprisingly, there's all types of dried fruits, and you could order them in bulk, not too expensive. So occasionally I'll reward myself with something that's more out of my price range, usually like dried papaya or something like, I like dried coconut and pineapple or cashews or these type things I eat regularly, but like papaya is like 2 or 3 times more expensive. So, like I'll reward myself with like an exotic fruit.
And do you struggle with overeating?
Not that much. I'm pretty cognizant. Like I think maybe I got up to like 220 a few times in the past 15 years, and almost always then like I'll start dieting. Once I get over 200, I'll start dieting, and like I've been a little over 200 for like a year, but like I'm very cognizant of my weight, and I forget the rabbi. I was listening. I think it was actually Heshi Tishler, ironically, the guy who was in the protest. But I listened to him once, and he kept on saying, "There's no fat people in the nursing home," and I'm not sure if that's accurate or not. But like I'm pretty careful about my weight, and I think being overweight is probably a significant health risk.
Yeah, and what do you do to work out?
Well, I manage some properties, so I'm constantly, like I'll move a few hundred pounds of stuff every few days, and like garbage. I do cleaning. It's like I run a vacuum over a few thousand, a few thousand square foot houses, and garbage and just regular activities gives me on average at least 30 minutes, maybe even an hour of physical activity a day. When I got up to like 210, I started doing push-ups and yoga again. I should probably do more of that. But I got to a point of like, oh man, like I got to start losing weight. And then I was actually, doing like some sit-ups and push-ups, what I hadn't done for a long time. And then I lost like 10 pounds and stopped doing that. But like I probably should. I say like I pace back and forth 2 hours a day. I should probably do 30 minutes of yoga instead of pacing 2 hours.
And how do you like the whole davening and prayer thing?
I love Judaism. Like, I think I would daven and pray by myself the rest of my life. I mean, even if God forbid, like I had to be by myself the rest of my life, I love Judaism. I think I would continue doing it. It's not just a social thing for me. And even the minyan now, like I used to like singing, and I used to like saying all the words out loud, but now I don't really do that because even I do outdoor minyan. It's just like it's factual that singing, davening loud is one of the most likely ways to spread the virus. So I haven't done that for a while, and I miss doing that. I miss chanting. Like I really liked singing and chanting and getting together. I actually chant. I find myself chanting to myself Hebrew songs, sometimes even hours every day. I had that one, that Lev Tahor Borolek Elohim. I chanted that to myself for like 8 hours the other day.
Wow. Can you stand on your head?
No. I was able to like decades ago. Like I'd have to lose 20 pounds. You can't stand your head. I mean, I could probably do like the baby with my, I don't know if you know yoga, but like against the wall, like on my elbows to help, I could probably do. But Yeah, I mean, actually, just talking right now, yeah, like I'm gonna start doing, God willing, I'm gonna start doing more exercise because, like, just kind of, I'm a pretty blatantly honest guy. Like, it's I don't consider this a low point of my life because it's the situation of COVID-19 that's really put me into it. It's not necessarily any bad decision or mistake that I made that put myself in this decision. Maybe the fact that I'm alone and don't have a family, is a culmination of my own bad decisions. But due to the lockdown, this is definitely a low point of my life. Thank God, not financially, but just like psychologically, mentally, like it's really. I'm really uncertain, like what's going to be, what's going to happen. Even my feeling, my connection to, who are my friends. I don't call people. Like I have a few friends that I was pretty close with that I still call and speak regularly. But like I could see, like just like I left New York and slowly fell out of contact with almost everyone I knew, that could happen here in Michigan, and it is happening, and there's really nothing I can do about it.
Yeah. Now, you described yourself as low testosterone. Have you always been that way, or is that a recent development?
I think I was always low testosterone. I mean, I was later to have attraction to girls than most kids my age. I was later to grow facial hair. In general, people's aggressiveness towards women, that I'm especially low testosterone. And just energy level, like I usually keep a pretty low, cool. I don't get that worked up, no matter what, even in, quite like party promoting or, God forbid in New York where like, I was usually the calm person in the room, no matter the scenario.
Yeah. Okay, this is great to catch up. So we'll do some tourist shows as soon as we get clear who our next president will be.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate you having me on, and look forward to talking and about intellectual tourist subjects. I appreciate.
Yeah, take care. Good to catch up, Dooovid. Okay.
You too. Thanks a lot.
Take care, my friend. Okay, let's play a little bit here from Greg Gutfeld.
And even ballot initiatives across the country that really, well, except for the drug stuff, went conservative. Greg.
Well, the good news is I think Trump basically has won Georgia, although the governor, Stacey Abrams, is saying not so fast. I would like, and I will, hold hands and go forward if Joe Biden wins. But you have to remember that these are the same people that for 4 years were pushing Russian collusion with no evidence. Remember the dossier. So when you want to play nice because you're winning, we understand that. But when you lost, oh boy, did you lose badly. I mean, you guys hit the streets. You guys rioted. You guys looted. So forgive me if, we want to fight. Because remember, Trump is popular among a lot of very famous coaches like Bobby Knight. And why is that? Because they fight bad calls. They'll throw a chair or two because they are actually fighting for their players. And Trump is fighting not just for himself, but for his voters. Yeah. He doesn't want them cheated. So I think it's not necessarily a strategy, Juan. It's just how he is, and that is to fight and to fight hard to the very end and leave nothing on the field, a phrase that I just coined.
Very good.
Yeah, I think he, sees all of the faces of all those people that he has talked to in these rallies over the last...
Okay, so Susan Collins, the senator from Maine, she was reelected. She did not lead in one poll. In every single poll, she was trailing, and yet she won. So a pollster's just idiots. Should we just disregard all pollsters? I think that's absurd. Think about your profession, whatever it is. There are probably about 20% of people in your profession who are excellent. There are probably 20% of people who are terrible, and probably 60% of people in your profession who are just mediocre. And same with pollsters. All the people who disregard pollsters those who have like an emotional, hatred for pollsters, it's all about putting them in their proper genre. Like even an all-pro offensive tackle, he misses some blocks. So, of course, pollsters are going to make mistakes. I know someone who's a professional weather gal on TV, and she's hot and she's cute and she's got, graduate degrees in meteorology, but she gets some weather forecasts wrong. So just because they they sometimes get the weather forecast wrong, does that mean that the hot weather girls are useless? No. So if you expect pollsters to be exact, then of course you're always going to be disappointed. Just as if you expect a talk show host to be scholarly precise with everything he says, you're going to be disappointed. If you expect Richard Spencer to be a reputable, upstanding, thoughtful, and considerate person, you're going to be disappointed, right? So you have to put people in their genre. Someone like a Richard Spencer is an attention-seeking provocateur. And so when you put him in that genre, attention-seeking provocateur, he's great. You can just enjoy him. So I read a book on polling 40 years ago, and it noted that generally speaking, the pollsters, generally speaking, have gotten most presidential elections correct between, say, 1952 and 1980. And apparently they were wrong in 1948, but they didn't poll as rigorously. And so I think it's a gigantic overreaction to say, oh, pollsters are useless. So obviously some are better than others, and how much attention you should pay to polls is a good question. And so much of the news reporting gets all anchored on the basis of polls. So let's say Donald Trump supposedly is trailing by 5 points in Florida, which was a polling consensus. Then news reports about Donald Trump going to Florida will always say Donald Trump goes to Florida, down by 5 in the polls. So perhaps the application of polling we need to rethink. And so I saw a tweet by Rudy Giuliani that he's going to Pennsylvania, and a friend of mine said, yeah, he's going to bill by the hour. Well, Rudy Giuliani has not billed Donald Trump for any of Rudy's legal work over the past 4 years, so I do not expect that Rudy will start now. Remember how a few months ago I was going on, and it's a recurring trope on this theme, that human beings did not evolve to be gullible, right? We did not evolve to be naive. We weren't born yesterday. So you see this in many of the United States Senate elections. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars were spent by Democrats to shift various Senate elections, and the hundreds of millions of advertising dollars made no difference. There was no difference in the election results from the results 6 years previous, where there wasn't so much money spent. So I'm not arguing that political advertising makes no difference. I'm arguing that most of the time it only makes a small amount of difference. So the Democrats vastly outspent the Republicans. I don't think that was the difference in the election, because we were not born yesterday. We did not evolve to be naive and gullible. And I've dealt with mentally insane people, but even when I was a kid and I would deal with these loonies who'd walk from the lunatic asylum to the local store to buy cigarettes and candy, and I'd try to talk them out of the radio that they'd be carrying with them, because I figured they were loonies, I'd be able to take advantage of them. Look, I was like 8 or 9 years of age. I'm not proud of this, but they never gave up their radios, even though they were loonies, because even loonies are not born yesterday. Even loonies did not evolve to be naive. And pretty much every woman I've gotten really, really, really close to, I had to put a little bit of effort in. I had to say some nice things. I sometimes had to buy her a nice dinner or two. I had to listen attentively. I almost always spent like at least 4 hours with her. So people just don't give things up just like that, drop trow and, let's roll. That's not how it is. People, even Sheila's, they did not evolve to be naive, mate. Okay. You're probably wondering what does young Keith Woods have
That's where we're going, because I woke up this morning to this news that Trump had done a sort of press conference, had basically declared victory, and said that he's going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court, because now the mail-in ballots are swinging some of these states in Biden's direction. And as it stands now, Biden is the heavy favorite. The bookies are giving him like 80% chance of winning. So it has been definitely quite eventful. I'm going to have a lot of guests on today, some big names coming on. And to start off, I'm joined by Morgoth's Review, Joel Davids, and Hunter Wallace. How are you doing, lads?
Oh, good.
Great.
Yeah, so Hunter, you're seen as you're the only American on the panel at the minute. Maybe you'd like to give us your impression on the ground. I mean, what is going on? What's happening with these mail-in ballots? I think that's what everyone is trying to figure out. There's so many accusations of fraud and gay ops I'm seeing, but
I remember I met this bloke who really liked my blogging, and so he paid me. He paid for me to go visit him, and so he flew me off to this exotic locale, and he had this really nice penthouse. Now his place was a complete mess, and it was the first time I ever saw someone do cocaine. We were about to go out that evening, and he cleaned off a little part of the kitchen table so that he could snort a line of coke. And I think I had to sleep on a bare mattress, and the place was dirty and filthy. But the outstanding memory of my visit with this guy is that 3 times in the first 24 hours that I was there, I walked in on him masturbating. It's on me. I'm to blame because I didn't knock. I just had a question about the Wi-Fi, and I just walked in, and he was always whacking it. 3 times, I walked in on this guy whacking it in 24 hours. I'm just off the plane, long plane ride. I don't do cocaine, so I haven't had the boost. And I think I just need to get the Wi-Fi. And that was a bit of a trauma. So guys, if you're going to whack it, I'm no fap, been no fap since June of 2013. But if you can't be no fap, I mean, at least be no nut November. And then, when it gets to December, if you're a miserable worm and you can't control yourself, at least lock the door. If you fly me over, to hang out with you, and you got to rub one out, at least lock the door. And yeah, it's on me to knock on the door. So I think between us, if you lock and I knock, I'm not going to walk on you fapping, because it's kind of a traumatizing experience. It reminds me, I had this girlfriend, Holly, and she noted that her relationship with her uncle, it was never the same after he asked her for a blowjob. So sometimes these little things can come up, and they can just put a little stuss, a little, I don't know, interference in what's otherwise a beautiful relationship. So guys, if you're going to be a disgusting, dirty, pathetic little worm who's going to fap yourself like some crazed monkey on meth, please lock the doors and don't live stream it. Make sure you cover up your cams. Because I had a girlfriend who was she had some way of hacking cams. She was Asian. She was really good at hacking cams. She's now dead. But she and her friend used to hack live cams. And almost inevitably, whenever they start, hacking people's live cams, they see guys masturbating. So it's just not dignified. I want more for your life. Now, I don't want the deep state to be able to blackmail you, or the Chinese Communist Party to be able to blackmail you because they've got video of you, fapping yourself like a monkey on meth. So, make sure you cover up your cam, lock the door. And look, if you're going to fap, just think about God, all right? Don't think about the checkout girl. Don't look at pornography. Don't think about the girl that got away. Don't think about your really hot ex-girlfriend. Don't think about your neighbor's wife. Think about God. Think about how much God loves you and how much God wants to have a relationship with you. And then if you're going to fap to thinking about God's love.
But it seems it's hard to verify any of it.
Well, in the United States, elections are by state. And we've had this crazy thing with, the early vote, the mail-in ballots because of COVID, and every state does it their own way. And it seemed like last night for most of the states, the early vote was reported early. So Biden jumps out to huge leads in most states, like Florida, for example. And then as the day of voting, ballot is total, Trump zoomed to a big lead in Florida and killed it there. Well, in the upper Midwest, it seems to have been the opposite, where the day of vote was counted first, and the mail-in ballots were held back later. Although, the Democrats are notorious for doing this. I've seen it 100 times in elections, where they'll let all the Republican counties report, and then they'll have some, huge urban area, and it'll hold on to its votes, and then they'll see how many votes they need to make up the difference, and then like at 4 or 5 in the morning they'll report it. And that's what happened last night. I went to bed, and now Biden is up in Michigan. And
so I'm thinking of setting up a website where you can hire a blogger to come hang out with you, and like you can charge by the hour, or like the blogger can stay the night or a weekend or even a week. So yeah, how much would it cost, say, for me to fly to your city and hang out with you like for a weekend? I don't think I'd be that expensive. I mean, I'd be missing out on shul, so I'd probably charge less if there was a nice Orthodox synagogue nearby, and it'd depend on if you're like attractive, young, and female or not, and if you were fat, I don't really. I'd have to charge a lot more money if you're fat, unless you're really, really smart and accomplished. If you're really smart and accomplished, I don't care if you're fat. But like if all things being equal, you're a fatty, then I'd have to like triple my rate. But I'm thinking, well, probably $2,000 to go spend a weekend with a fan, and there's no like sexual action going on here. All right, this is just, this is all above board. Like this is like 613 all the way. There are 613 basic commandments in the Torah, and I'll need kosher food, and prefer to be near an Orthodox synagogue. But aside from that, I think probably $2,000. So you could probably I bet you could get Jim Goad to come hang out with you for a weekend for $2,000. I mean, no funny stuff. He's not necessarily going to put on like that German helmet or wear an iron cross, or he's not going to dress up for you. Like, no funny business, no perversity, right? When I run this like blogging escort service, it's all going to be completely above board, right? There's not going to be anything illegal or even immoral going on. This will be the most reputable blogging escort service that's ever been created. So your favorite tweeter or your favorite blogger or your favorite, live streamer, you can, let's say, take them to dinner for an hour for $100 if it's nearby the person, or let's say 3 hours for $250. Spend the whole day with you, just hanging out, walking around, maybe visiting museums, just 12 hours. What would be a reasonable price? 12 hours, say $500, and 24 hours, let's say $750. And so I'm signing up, like leading tweeters, live streamers, bloggers as we speak. I think this could be an amazing new experience. And I'm also going to start selling wrenches, start selling the spanner. Like why are you going to buy the cow if you can get the milk for free? Like, I'm just giving it out willy-nilly. I am just bestowing upon you one of the greatest honors that you could ever receive. I'm like the queen, knighting a subject. That's what it's like when I give you a spanner. I'm like a queen knighting my subject, except I'm not a queen. I'm a king because I'm very heterosexual. So I'm a king knighting his subject when I give you a spanner. I'm just tossing these things out left and right, left and right. And then when you tick me off, I just take them away. But I got to stop monetizing this. Like, I'm giving away stuff. No wonder you don't respect me, because I'm just tossing these spanners to you like it's nothing. Like there's absolutely no prestige to it. Like there's no secret invites to it. It's not like a key to some mystical kingdom where everything's awesome and there are great parties. I'm just like giving it away as though it's nothing, just because you can write some decent sentences and not be a total jerk. And I'm just tossing this away. And I'm giving you like the best years of my life. And I'm just tossing spanners and giving you the best years of my life. And I should be running a blogger escort service and charging for spanners. Thank you.
And Wisconsin, and he's leading in Nevada. If he wins Nevada, Michigan, and Wisconsin, then he's got 270 and he's going to win. But I mean, there's just so many irregularities. It's so predictable. The election was absolutely. Here's the overall take: is that the election was absolutely nothing at all what people predicted it would be. It looks like Trump improved on his performance amongst all demographics except white men. That means that white women who were supposed to go for Biden by a landslide either lied to the pollsters or the pollsters lied. We don't. The race was completely different than what the media said it would be, like by a lot. And I don't really know what's going to happen. It seems to be spiraling towards the worst possible outcome in terms of violence. In that, I did not think this was going to be such a close election. I thought I said the polls were wrong. I never trusted the polls, but I thought Biden would win it. But now it's looks like they're trying to cheat Trump out of a victory, because I mean you got to look at the Senate and the House. It looks like the Republicans are going to pick up seats in the House of Representatives and hold the Senate. So, and Trump vastly outperformed what people thought he would. It just doesn't add up in my view.
Yeah, I should have introduced Hunter, actually. He's the editor of OccidentalDissent.com. But Alt Media sent super chat. He said it was very white pill when I went to sleep, black pill now, recounts might change that around. But yeah, this is the weird thing. Like, a lot of people went to bed last night thinking Trump had it in the bag, and it's the complexion of it has completely changed within the course of a few hours. But yeah, I mean, what did you make of that, Joel, in terms of the mail-in ballots?
Yeah, well, I didn't go to bed because I'm in Australia, and I kind of stayed up majority of the night before, cycling, energy drinks, and booze to try and
then a lot of other things. They've got Wall Street on their side. They've got big tech. Hitching our bandwagon to Trump and just standing in front of a hegemonic force is something that is not going to be good for us, because we don't have the backup. We don't have the people supporting us and the institutions to help us. So I have a kind of Hobbesian fear about that, and I don't want to be just crushed by an ongoing steamroller. So that's a little aspect of it. The other aspect is darkness, and my inner soul is basically Anakin Skywalker. So yeah, I don't fear.
Richard Spencer says that Donald Trump has darkness in his soul. That's great.
Hate, fear, and darkness.
I'm talking about fucking Hobbesian and shit.
No,
Have you been reading
wait, no. Wait. Mersh, go ahead. Mersh, go ahead. That was you.
Well, okay, no, so because I can sort of relate to this sort of train of thought. Like I was actually went from very hardcore early on pro-Trump guy all the way to off the Trump train. I'm not even voting this time. Very black-pilled. And then as I saw the violence escalate, in the Northwest and, with this BLM stuff, I sort of came back around, and I can understand voting almost out of spite. I guess my question, Richard, is what does a man's cum taste like? And you have 60 seconds.
Yeah, that's just not funny. I just noticed an Andy Worski. Wow, I haven't seen Andy Worski in quite some time. Wow.
What up, man? How you doing?
How you doing, man?
Excellent.
You don't know,
Mersh. Fantastic.
That's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you don't know, Mersh is what you said, Dick.
Yeah. Guys, I gotta have a drink. I gotta get to this bar in LA. I'm wearing 2 hats for 2 terms. Come to Tampa, Road Rage Tampa, tampa.dick.show. Richard, I need you to come into the studio and rough my girlfriend up a little bit. She's getting very lippy. Sorry, your candidate didn't win, though. I'm sorry, but I support your support of Biden. I love you all.
Thank you, Dick. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
8 more years of rookie
Thank
numbers.
you,
We're talking 16.
What'll be interesting though is if Trump is kind of pulling ahead tonight, and then you have all the mail-in voting ballots to count, which it seems are going to go strongly in Biden's favor. You could see Trump declaring victory or something tonight, and then then his base are mobilized, and then the mail-in votes are swinging.
No. There's 300,000 overall according to the U.S. Postal Service, and if you do the math, just if you spread it out across all the states, I don't think that will make the difference that you're implying.
Well, that might be true, but what I think Keith is getting at is that, I mean, what did Trump do in 2016 that was different and unique? And very few people predicted this, and I'm not even sure he predicted it. I'm not even sure the strategy. He might have stumbled upon it, but it was the Rust Belt strategy. It was winning over former Obama voters, winning Michigan, Wisconsin, et cetera. And Florida was huge. And Texas is obviously a foundation stone, but it was this Midwest thing that was unique. And I think what Keith is getting at is an interesting possibility, because again, if you think all the polls are fraudulent, okay, fine. I mean, they were clearly off in Florida, because Florida was kind of leaning Biden. But the fact is the polls are like Biden +9, Biden +11 in a lot of these states in the Midwest, like the Rust Belt states. And it's a different type of voter. So it's like the based Hispanic Cuban, that's a pretty unique entity in Florida. And it's interesting that they're still overall democratic, but they're like tending towards Trump. And there's maybe a unique bond between that. That's interesting. But in terms of like Rust Belt, Midwestern, white people, middle class and lower class voting for Biden on the basis of maybe Trump disappointment, there's maybe COVID, maybe the fact that they voted for Obama not too long ago.
I don't know if you saw there's one polling company, Trafalgar, that called all the swing states in 2016. They were the only ones picking Trump, and they've been picking Trump for this one as well. I don't know. I mean, Michigan, I just checked the odds, and like bookmakers have Biden is still like 70% chance of winning Michigan last time I checked.
Yeah.
So they're still putting him ahead in all of the Rust Belt swing states.
Yeah, I read an article in Trafalgar this morning, and he basically operates under the assumption.
Okay, so we've got some conservatives checking out Little Pump after seeing him embrace Donald Trump. This better not be copyrighted, Ashi.
Gucci gang. Oh, that's it right now, T-Dub. Little Pump.
I'm sure I can't play this. Ashi, you're killing me. I'm sure this would be really funny, but I'm also equally sure it's copyrighted, and you'll get me in trouble with the Jews, Ashi. You're getting me in trouble with the Jews, bro. Okay, I just prepared so many thoughts for you today. I am like a cow with big fat udders, just swollen with milk. And I'm just going to stand here and I'm just going to squirt my big fat udders at you with my ideas, but not in a gay way. So thinking about Lindsey Graham, speaking of not gay, and you may remember about a month ago, he delayed Amy Coney Barrett's nomination by 1 day. And that 1 day allowed the United States Supreme Court, just 8 members, to rule on Pennsylvania's decision to allow mail-in ballots 9 days past election. The United States Supreme Court split 4-4 on that. So if Lindsey Graham hadn't played gay games with ABC's nomination, that may well be the difference in the 2020 election. What's to be learned from the campaign if Trump does indeed lose? Trump never offered much of a second-term agenda. I think he probably would have won if Steve Bannon would have run his campaign. In 2016, Bannon helped Trump to sharpen a populist message for the last 3 weeks of the campaign. This time around, Trump never stuck to a consistent message. He didn't find a takedown on Joe Biden that worked, like Sleepy Joe, Corrupt Joe didn't work as much as Crooked Hillary. So he did not adopt the populist message he used in the final weeks of 2016. And on the other hand, Joe Biden ran the least inspiring presidential campaign ever, and he won. And if you think this sucks, if Donald Trump does indeed lose the election, then you can develop empathy for how the Democrats felt in year 2000, because they had then just as much reason as Republicans have now for feeling robbed of an election that they believe that they truly won. And if you're worried about the other side cheating, just think about what you would be willing to do to get what you want in life, such as a political election, right? Or think about how much you'd be willing to turn a blind eye on shenanigans when it serves your side. So, the Borat swimsuit. The problem is I can't show the Borat swimsuit because it doesn't show up because of the green screen. So how can I show you my Borat swimsuit? Oh, you can sort of see it though. See, it's there. Like, how do you wear this? Like, you can see by the shadows, this is like Plato's cave, right? This is a metaphor about Plato's cave. Like, normally I only show this to members. Normally I save this just for my members only streams. But so this goes around my shoulders, and normally I like on the members only stream you can see the actual green, but for this is just an open stream, anyone can see it. But I've gotten a lot of rave reviews on my Borat swimsuit, so don't knock it. You'll pay me $2,000, hang out with you. You wear the Borat swimsuit. Do we have to go out in public, or can we just like hang out and discuss books? Because I'm not sure I'd really be comfortable going out in public in nothing but a Borat swimsuit, my seat, and my yarmulke. But if we can just hang out at your place, no funny business, we can just talk about the great books that we've read. Okay, so yeah, if you're willing to keep it totally private, yeah, this is like Borat swimsuit. It's like, this is trad. This is like pure trad. Does Luke like to let his crocodile out while cycling? So all you are getting now are the shadows on Luke's cave wall, because you probably couldn't handle it if I took the shadows away. But on the member-only streams, I take the shadows away, and you just get to see the real deal. Yeah, I'm going to make a fortune on OnlyFans. Okay, so what do I eat these days? So for breakfast, I had 5 eggs with cottage cheese and some kosher salt. And then for lunch, I had a blueberry smoothie with some protein powder, some almond milk, some low-calorie chocolate chip ice cream, with 2 big scoops of plain yogurt, 2 frozen bananas, and a third of a pack of Crystal Light Hawaiian fruit punch mix. That was so good, bro. So good. Yeah, my camp show is only for members, bro. Yeah, is there any way for me to mute non-members? Yeah. And so tonight, what's that song? Tonight, gonna make it right. Tonight. It's an ancient Australian song, and I gotta get. Tonight we're gonna make it right. So how does the song go? Because tonight, no, doggone it. Tonight. Oh, we're gonna make it right. Tonight. Oh, I'm going down like a monkey. No, that's not kosher. Tonight, we're gonna study Torah. I got some money in my pocket ready to burn. Tonight. Okay, I think that's about the limit on that song. It wasn't long, but it was intense. And so these short but intense musical interludes and the Borat swimsuit, I mean, this is where you come on down. This is where you come on down like a monkey. It's like a load on your back that you can't see. Ooh, don't you know that it's right? Just try to shake it loose, cut it free, let it go, but just get it away from me. Oh, because tonight, maybe we'll make it right. Tonight. Oh, please get me out of here. Just someone get me out of here. Just help me. I'll do anything. If you just help me get out of here tonight. Oh, I'm going to make it right. Tonight. Yes, tonight. Oh, yes, I'm going to make it right. Tonight. Oh, that's an awesome song by Brittle Star. Wow.
Assumption that most people lie, particularly about right-wing stuff, and I think that's kind of interesting. And then in my article, which might soon be BTFO'd, and I look like a complete idiot in short order on Democrats winning and Biden winning, there's this interesting study by this. I think I saw a picture of him online. I think he's half black and he's like descended from 60s activist, and he was doing the study on violent riots and how that affected the election. And basically what he kind of proved, I mean, as much as you can prove anything with social science modeling, is that all of these counties that were close to violent riots post MLK assassination were like trending towards Nixon in 68. And he basically, again, as he basically proves, as much as you can prove anything with social science, he proves that, Humphrey would have won the 68 election were it not for all of these people near violence. And what I was suggesting in my article is that, because I did have like a section on, how could Trump win, because it's obviously possible, is that everyone kind of feels like they're proximate to the riots through social media. So it's like, even if the riots happening in Portland, people in like Minnesota are like, oh my gosh, is Antifa coming to our house? Holy crap. They're getting freaked out by BLM. And so they're all kind of proximate to the rioting. And could that have this like effect of all of these shy, like quote, shy Trump voters and people who will lie to pollsters if they're called? Interesting possibility.
Well, like, I lie to pollsters every single fucking time they call me.
I got it.
It's so great.
An official. This is from.
I see your word salad and raisin, but nobody cares, nerd.
Oh my God!
But
We're watching
the
the results.
Associated Press, and I lied.
Completely like, why would you tell them? I mean, especially if you were like a dyed-in-the-wool Trump supporter, why would you voluntarily give your knowledge to a polling outfit? If anything, you would tell them the wrong thing, or you would just hang up.
Okay, let's get a little more here from Greg Gutford.
Well, one thing was clear about the election. We know who the losers are. The pollsters and the media, the cannibal twins who feed off each other's manufactured delusions and make a neat profit off them. It works like this. For nearly half a decade, the media labels a candidate and, by extension, his supporters as racist. That silences those voters, so the polls reflect a false picture. I mean, why would you tell the truth to strangers if that truth is deemed socially unacceptable? Meanwhile, riots ensue as another consequence of that smear, as though America deserves it under Trump. Yet even though they stuck the evil white man tag on Trump, his popularity leapt in this election among Latinos, black men, and black women. Again, if Trump's racist, man, he sucks at it. He's no Joy Reid.
If somehow they manage to stumble into the Supreme Court, do any of you guys trust Uncle Clarence and Amy Coney Barrett and those guys to actually follow the letter of the law? No.
Wow. So there was that. Well, it should piss you off. Trump is racist was the tentpole hoax where every other hateful smear found its shade. Imagine how many more blacks, Latinos, and yes, whites would have voted for Trump if an honest media had took an axe to that poll, which is why they didn't. Speaking of polls, you wonder why no one trusts this outcome, including Trump? When you keep being lied to, how can you trust anyone? No wonder pollsters never ask if you trust polls. How can you go to bed seeing one result, then wake up to a new one that saves the day for the media's choice and not be a little suspicious? So don't blame Trump. Blame the media pollster industrial complex. I'd compare them to snake oil salesmen, but that's unkind to snakes and salesmen because whatever the media's pollsters are selling, nobody's going to buy it ever again. I said that, by the way, in 2016, Jesse, so I was wrong then. If people in normal jobs were as wrong as the media and pollsters, they would be out of a job, Jesse.
Yeah.
Okay, so Adam Green here on Woski
So
Live.
crazy, and the media is so crazy that we feel like it's winning to vote for the most Zionist president ever, and people lose sight of the two-party dichotomy, the paradigm where no matter what, Israel wins, and it's business as usual, and both sides are Zionists, but Trump is more. It almost feels like a WWE or a Don King match where it's like they want us to enthusiastically support Trump, the BLM, the Antifa, the lying media. It almost kind of plays into his hands a little bit, running Biden when they got this laptop and stuff. And just Trump is on the third temple coin. Trump is giving the Zionists, whatever they want. He's shutting down anti-Semitism. Censorship in the last 4 years has intensified more than ever. And yeah, we haven't seen a big war, but we still have another term now. And they do want a big Gog and Magog apocalyptic Armageddon before their messianic age. So I wouldn't rule it out of the cards.
Usually, though, a president will start a war so they can get reelected, and he didn't. So, and I would say Trump's probably the second most Zionist. He's not as Zionist as LBJ, wouldn't you say?
Well, I mean,
Okay. Thanks, Ashy. All right. Steve Saylor finally published his analysis of Donald Trump. The Trump Review. Being a Wednesday morning columnist is a good gig, except the day after Election Day when nobody will be interested in whatever statistics I'd researched on Monday. So having no clue how the voting turned out yesterday, let me try to be at least vaguely relevant by finally getting around to tell you my opinion of Trump. It occurs to me I've probably written less about Donald Trump's personality over the past 4 years than just about any pundit in America. One reason is because everybody else writes incessantly about Trump, while my niche is analyzing topics that few dare mention, such as how urban murders were up 53% over 2019 during the June-August George Floyd mourning process. How's that media declared racial reckoning working out for big city property values anyway? Another reason is that my main interest is in pattern recognition. I'm basically a baseball stats type guy who instead analyzes social data. Trump, remember, data is how high status people say data. Trump, on the other hand, is sui generis. That means unique. Over the 35 years since he first surfaced in the national media, Trump has been such a unique personality that I haven't been that interested in him because he doesn't seem terribly exemplary of any patterns or trends. He is who he is, and nobody else is quite like him. Trump is perhaps the most to their own self be true personality I have ever seen. He's been authentically Trump-like throughout the decades. Joe Biden, in contrast, although resembling Trump in his egomania and lack of a filter, tries to keep you from noticing as he chases trends, such as announcing in Kenosha, Wisconsin, that Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb. It was some black dude whose name Joe doesn't recall at the moment. Moreover, Joe Biden is not all that unusual a personality. In fact, other than being skinny, he's a cliche cocky jock, the car dealer's son who played split end in small college football, took a few knocks on the head, a Gerald Ford with fragile self-esteem issues. It's not a coincidence that in Biden's 3 tries for the White House, he's been most successful now that his personality is muted by age, masks, and his basement. Blair Nathan writes on Twitter, Biden is the perfect candidate for the coalition of the fringes because he's been running as a generic Democrat, a compromise candidate none of the factions are excited about, but all believe they can influence to some degree. So the ambiguity and lack of content of Bidenism are well suited to the ungainly coalition that makes up the modern Democratic Party. The one Trump forerunner I can recall is bombastic George Steinbrenner, who bought the New York Yankees baseball team in 1973 when both the Yankees and New York City were down and out. Like Trump, a few years later, Steinbrenner bet big on New York City and won. Trump has boasted that Steinbrenner was his mentor and best friend.
On them, I really do think that's a real thing. Where, you know, a normal Trump voter, just think of the Trump media. I mean, I do this for a living, right? I've seen a lot of the Trump media. Could you imagine being a, you know, by that measure, a normal Trump voter and seeing, you know, some exit poller or hearing some pollster calling you and saying, oh, who are you going to vote for? Why the fuck would you tell that person the truth?
No. Okay, if we blame Richard's president for Charlottesville, like, okay, if we humor that, this year, BLM killed a lot more people this year. Like, if we just take it like that.
I don't
and like maintain a level where my heart wasn't beating out of my chest, but I wasn't asleep.
It's like the Super Bowl for nerds, isn't
it? In a way, yeah. Like it was, yeah. I got pretty autistic, and anyway, I've been following this shit closely, and you know, it does seem very obvious. It's a fix. I mean, Hunter explained it well. Basically, they held back their key precincts, waited for the Republicans to show their cards, and then conveniently do some math to extend, you know, to give them the amount of votes they need. Drop them at 4 o'clock in the fucking morning, and you know, flip these key swing states on their head. I mean, it's very obvious tactics. I don't really care. I mean, if you look into the specifics, I think it gets even more dodgy, particularly from some of the explanations I've heard. I recommend going to watch whatever you think of Steve Bannon. I recommend watching Steve Bannon's show, particularly this guy, People's Pundit is his Twitter handle. Bannon was interviewing him, grilling him, trying to get like a take on, okay, what's the numbers? How does this break down? And, you know, it does look like the numbers are pretty fudged in favor of the Democrats. A lot of people are noticing this kind of 130,000 votes dropped at 4 o'clock in the morning in one go up in Wisconsin. They completely flipped that state. As looking dodgy, and there was a similar move made in Michigan. And another aspect that isn't being spoken about as much, or people seem to be getting wise to it, is that Arizona, it looked like, okay, Biden had a lead, but Trump was closing that lead rapidly, and it seems like they shut down the count and called it early. You know, that seems to be the trigger for them to stop counting across the board. Very weird how you see in a few other states, Trump closing to victory and they just stop counting. So like North Carolina and Georgia, why do they stop counting when they're like 98% of the way in? Like just finish the fucking count. You're almost done. So there's a lot of just shenanigans and irregularities. And so I think what the right must do is, you know, it can feel a little bit blackpilling. What the right must do right now is push this narrative 100 billion%, because we can't take this on the chin. We can't, like, I mean, regardless of whether it actually was dirty tactics or not, and I think it was. It's not like the left or the globalists or whatever have played nice with us up to this point. So why should we all of a sudden decide to play fair now? Like this is the point at which Trump needs to be backed, and the entire right needs to get behind backing him. Because if we refuse to accept this and we push the narrative, the right wing kind of culture industry, so to speak, the alternative media has become very powerful online despite all the censorship. We're able to kind of command half the culture and really outdo our kind of pay grade. So.
Here's the thing: is like regardless of what you think of Trump. Last night, I mean, he did a tweet saying that he had a problem with the counting process, and Twitter censored it. You couldn't retweet it, you couldn't like it, it was hidden. You had to go to his page to see it. So I mean, people are observing this now, and you know, half the country that supports Trump in the US are looking at this, and the entire complex of the media, of mainstream politicians, of finance seems to be against Trump. So I mean, yeah, I completely agree with that. We need to just use this to try and just absolutely discredit every arm of the establishment. It seems like a golden opportunity. But I'll bring Morgoth in. I mean, What's been your impression of it? You said you went to bed like most people, I think, thinking that Trump had it in the bag, but it's a very different story now.
Yeah, I did. I went to bed. I got up. I was beginning to watch. I kind of drifted off watching the Young Turks election night meltdown, which is a kind of tradition and like a sign. And people, I saw that people were starting to talk about all the salt and all of the meltdowns that started. We're going to get SJW freakout compilations. It's just like the good old days. And it was like that this morning as well. And I thought, okay, fair dues. And I went out. It was a lovely sunny day. I went out all day. And I came back, and it's like we're getting robbed, and everybody's just completely pessimistic and pissed off, and it just seems totally blatant.
I'm voting for the
I looked before, so Orwell and Good, who's a good Twitter account, he's posted a screenshot of a Canadian newspaper, and it says Trudeau promises military intervention if Trump refuses to leave office. So
that's got to be a joke, right? Nick Fuentes.
You all have to vote for the president. If you watch this show, you just have to vote for Trump. I'm not going to let you not vote for Trump. You can't not vote for Trump. And you have to do it. I'm telling you, you have to do it. Not a choice. It's not a choice. I'm voting for Trump. You're voting for Trump. And if you don't vote for Trump, you're a traitor to America. You're a traitor to your race. You're a traitor to your people. There's no good reason to not vote for Trump. There just isn't. Sorry, but there's not. Oh, well, he's shilling for Israel or blacks or whatever. Not a good reason. Not a good enough reason. Immigration's been cut in half. Walls going up. Okay, so we've been over this before, but you have to vote for Trump. I'm just putting that out there. I know I see some people in the live chat are like, oh, cringe, this is cringe. I agree. I think it is cringe, but it doesn't matter. If Joe Biden gets in, he's going to shoot me in the head. ATF is going to kick down my door, or blacks will, and they'll kill me. And if the blacks do it, the government will allow it. They won't even charge them for killing me. So you have to protect me. You have to protect me and protect yourself. So I think he can hear me. Okay, I'll be able to hear him in 1 sec. There we go. Okay, can you hear me, Sam? How's it going?
Yo,
hey,
can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. How's it going?
This is Chinese intelligence officer Sampu Hyde-chan reporting in for duty. The Splinter Cell. I'm off doing my. I actually am being followed by black people right now. That's not a joke. So hold on 1 second. I got to see what the scoop is here. That's actually serious. I had a whole routine planned out, but now I'm like stressing out because these guys are fucking following me.
What'd you do? Did you? I know you drive very aggressively. You're freaking me out.
I gotta shake him. I gotta shake him. Hold on a second.
All right.
This is fucking crazy. If I die tonight, make sure you put it on YouTube. But chop it up, okay?
We got it.
Alrighty. We're good.
Evasive maneuvers. Okay, we're all set.
Hey. Just another ordinary night here.
Just another night in Rhode Island. Did you vote today, Sam? Did you vote?
No, I did not vote yet. I'm sorry. I let everyone down. I was too busy casting votes into the ether with my voice. I was using that new magic voting system. Have you heard about that?
Oh yeah, I understand. You're manifesting.
Well, I was a spokesperson briefly for the service 1-800-USA-VOTE, which turned out to be it's not a scam, but they haven't been forthright about paying me on time. 1-800-USA-VOTE. That's the service where you just text your vote. And so anyway, I started doing this thing. It's like witchcraft, but it's like magic. So you shout your vote out into the air, and it's picked up by magic. I mean, I don't know how it works, but it works. And I've been casting. At first, I started casting common votes, but then I started casting rare votes, and I learned how to make what they refer to as champion votes. A champion vote is like 50x a regular vote, so it's kind of amazing that I was able to do this. And right now, I'm working on an elite vote that's going to be worth 200 votes. Hopefully, get us over the hump here.
Oh well, yeah, maybe that's why Rhode Island is still. It looks like Trump is still going strong there. We're like halfway counted. He's on his way. Yeah, those are the votes that you want to win. The sucker votes where you go and cast it. Forget those. The one that wins is the one that's casting the champion.
Yeah.
The premium. You got the premium votes.
Yes. We have all tiers of votes. I'm trying not to kill a construction worker here with my truck while I'm talking on the voicemail. Actually, there might be cops here. I got to put this phone down. A low angle here. Yeah, there we go. Anyway, man, how you doing?
I'm doing good. We're freaking out, man. I mean, we've been covering this for 100 hours, it feels like, and it seemed like we were going to win. Now they're trying to steal it, so it's all political stuff, But I'm drilling coffee and Monster. How about you? What are you up to?
You remember in 2016 they tried to delay their demise so childishly, so sophomorically with all these tricks, this trickery. But as far as I'm concerned, right now, I'm driving to Canada right now to pick up Faith Goldie for my celebration.
Bring her in.
Hey, Faith, if you're watching this right now, we're gonna celebrate you and me. Here we go. I'm coming.
On the way in the Raptor.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm excited.
Yeah, it's fucking. If Biden wins, it'll at least be hilarious. It'll be nonstop hilarity. He'll be dead within 3 months from whatever this. They'll shoot him with a heart attack gun or bake his brain with a microwave or something to get the this ghoul-faced, hollow-eyed demon Kamala Harris into the presidential hot seat, and then from there the sound bites and the humor will just never end. It'll just be 4 years of black comedy.
Yeah, well, that's the benefit is if we do lose, and I don't know, I mean, it could go either way at this point. They're trying to steal it. We could steal it back. But if it's 4 years of Biden and Harris, I mean, it's going to be like 100%, 538 votes for Trump at the end of it. He'll die. She'll get in. She's insane. She's a lizard. And the country's just going to go to hell. It's going to be a prison state. The coronavirus vaccine will never come out. And when it does, everyone's going to die from it. The economy's going to crash. So the life goes on, Obama tended to be the best thing that happened. And hopefully it'll just make everyone more racist if Kamala Harris gets in. It'll make the Mexicans more racist. Opposition media will get stronger. So
fingers crossed. Well, speaking of racism, I got a special treat for you right now. All right? Close your eyes. You hear something funny? Do you hear the stampeding sound of 1 million all-black Air Force One low drug dealer sneakers? You do? Well, Well, guess what? Guess what, Nick? I'm coming for your birthday. Here's what I got for you here, November 3rd. I have 1 million black convicts going to the polls at 1 a.m. I'm calling it. 1 a.m. is when this is going down because of my army of black convicts. I am black, first of all. Second of all, for the past 4 years, I've been street fighting, MMA fighting in prisons, earning the respect of the most important blacks. They're on my side. I'm with them. They're coming with me. We are going to the polls. We are going to be voting for Donald J. Trump. Extreme last-minute black felon vote coming in now.
Well, it's happening. Blexit is happening. We did it.
It's happening.
And Candace Owens, you close cooperation. Man, all these blacks. I can't fucking wait for all these drug dealers and murderers to go out and vote for Trump, as we all know.
We got to give them Faith Goldie.
Well, you know what they say. For the greater good. Is that not what we are? Collectivists.
It has to be done. It has to be done.
Yeah. Well, that's why you're on your way to pick her up. I hope she's not watching the stream. Because, she thinks she's going for ice cream or something. She doesn't know. She has no idea. She's about to get dropped off. And they're going to be sucking their teeth and licking their lips.
You can't win them all. You can't win them all, man.
You can't win them all. You can't win Faith Goldie and the nation. Hey, she's Canadian. Yeah. This show is America first. They could take Stefan Molyneux, too. They could take Stefan Molyneux. They could take Steven Crowder. Forget it.
Man, Stefan Molyneux freestyle rapping. It's coming soon. Well, man, what more can be said about the situation by me, my limited pea-brain intelligence, and my car accident that's waiting for me here? Hey. What's the Kekistani thing to say right now? How should I sign this? How should I sign off here?
You could say, I don't know. That's on Kek. You could say your Kek check. Kek out loud, KOL.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, hey, save Evropa and fuck it, MAGA.
Let's go. All right, MAGA, baby. Well, hey, thanks for calling in. Good to hear from you. Be safe.
Have a good stream, man.
You too, buddy. Hey, good luck with Faith.
Okay, hey, Sam Hyde there talking to Nick Fuentes. Looking at Twitter, North Carolina will not update its total vote count until November 12. Why the heck? That's 8 days. The state is crucial for President Trump's path to victory. What the heck? All right, Michelle Malkin was talking with Darren
As long as
Beattie.
mail-in ballots are marked by Election Day, November the 3rd, they will be counted.
Hundreds of people turned out to show their frustration over the plan to conduct the November election by mail. Project Veritas uncovers ballot harvesting fraud in Minnesota. Here's the ballot everybody's talking about. Notice something off. Underneath Donald Trump's name is Jeremy Cohen.
The new court ruling in battleground Pennsylvania could leave tens of thousands of ballots uncounted. Color revolution, buddy. What is it?
It's a regime change model favored by many in our national security apparatus, particularly against Eastern European countries, to overthrow target regimes that they don't like. It's literally the same people who are color revolution professionals who have a long history of using these same tactics against foreign leaders they don't like to use against democratically elected President Donald Trump. It's the same people using the very same playbook. The chief characteristics of it is a combination of an engineered contested elections scenario combined with massive mobilized protests, which they call as a term of art, peaceful protests and acts of civil disobedience. Many have described the actions taken against Trump as a coup. And this is certainly correct, but it's a little bit general and vague. What's unfolding before our eyes is a very specific type of coup called the color revolution.
Okay, on Twitter, I'm reading from Politico. Trump campaign says that as soon as Friday, it will be clear that he won Arizona, and it will be clear soon that he won Pennsylvania. And Georgia claims that they will have all ballots counted tonight. So if Trump wins Georgia, Pennsylvania, Arizona, North Carolina, Trump wins the election.
Wow. So the Cliff Notes version of that is, see, I told you so. Right, Darren?
I just can't help it. I have to laugh. It's such a well-done video. And at the end, it does pay homage to a now kind of internet classic Ben Garrison cartoon of Jonah Goldberg washing my feet, just thrown in there. So it's a little bit of comic relief to an otherwise very serious and very relevant topic.
Yeah. So, look, in essence, many of us went to bed last night. I know you didn't, but, you know, many ordinary Americans who voted for Trump went to bed last night. They saw where the trends were. Trump was winning, and they woke up this morning to suddenly discovered ballots in battleground states, hundreds of thousands of them, all for Biden.
Right. Well, I mean, this is.
Yeah, so 7 p.m., I was sure Trump was going to win. By 9 p.m., I was starting to get worried. I think I went to bed about 11:30 p.m. I thought Trump was still going to win, but I saw way too many people on Twitter saying, this now means that Biden has the most likely path to victory. Then I got up at 2 a.m. to check on things, and Biden was now the overwhelming favorite. And I got up at 5:30 a.m. and checked again, and Biden seemed even more in command. So, about 6:20 p.m., Trump moved into the favorite spot on the betting markets. By 6:45, 7 p.m., it looked like Trump was going to win for sure. And then by 8 p.m., the odds of Trump winning for sure were diminishing. By 9 p.m., 10 p.m., I was getting increasingly concerned. But when I went to bed, I think just before midnight, I thought Trump was still most likely to win. Then when I got up at 2 a.m. and checked again, it's like, oh no, now it looks like Biden's most likely to win.
This is set up. Was bound to happen in some respects. I mean, as it's a natural result of this mass mail-in ballot issue that they've been front-loading for months now. I mean, it would be shocking if something like this didn't happen. What's frustrating is that there doesn't seem to be a kind of preparation on the side of the Trump team Republicans to counteract this. What I was saying to friends in the campaign, friends in the White House last night, saying, look, do not go to sleep. Do not go to sleep. You have to watch these ballots, watch these precincts, watch it like a hawk, because they're going to steal it in the dead of night. And sure enough, all of these, new results coming in that are, insanely disproportionate, pro-Biden numbers, Michigan, Wisconsin, now we're seeing Pennsylvania. A lot of these have been coming in, 5 a.m, when nobody's watching. And so it's really, it's an absolute travesty. It's an outrage, but also it's just, so frustrating to see, because it's almost like the GOP side was inviting this to happen. So what are you going to do? And, these, ultra corrupt third world urban environments, just leaving, just saying, okay, pipe broke in some precinct in Georgia. Oh, let's just wait until the next morning and count. What do you expect to happen? We need to be wise as serpents here, as they say. And it's if you're caught, taking a nap for 10 minutes, the next thing you know, that your election is stolen. So it is what it is. They've gotten some of the steal done, but I think there's still an opportunity to for Trump to actually prevail and stop the steal ultimately, if he follows the right steps.
Yes, and we'll talk about that in just a second. I pulled up a piece on Gateway Pundit. They've always had their ears to the ground, very, very, very attached to the grassroots outside the establishment. And they have a Michigan poll worker
okay, time for a musical.
Reporting on the scene that Republicans allegedly witnessed suspicious vehicles dropping off ballots. The reason why that caught my eye is because more than a month ago, I had been in Wisconsin and had heard from people on the ground about exactly these kinds of schemes involving ballot harvesting that came under the umbrella of the Center for Tech and Civic Life, subsidized in large part by Mark Zuckerberg, Google, other left-wing philanthropists.
Right.
And there had been some grassroots attempts to stop it. These were not official establishment GOP organizations, but rather grassroots right-wing election integrity groups. They filed lawsuits at both the state and federal level. They were not able to get anywhere. And so there's no mystery about how these hundreds of thousands of mysteriously discovered mail-in and absentee ballots have been delivered. And in the case of Wisconsin and in Madison, the ballots were being collected at public parks. It was largely homeless people, probably illegal aliens, God knows who. And they were stuffed into canvas bags, not, locked, secure ballot boxes, and then carted off in suspicious vehicles, white vans, just like this Michigan poll watcher is describing. So, I mean, I guess it is sort of all spilled milk to say, hey, we warned you about this now. And the next step really is, what do people do? And there is a brand new article that you just pointed me to that's been posted at Revolver. Can you walk through those steps?
Yeah, I think there are two articles that I think really must read. Everyone after this stream, go to revolver.news, or even now go to revolver.news and read the piece as I'm describing it. There are two of them, and the latest one is really the top steps that need to be taken by the Trump team. And I'm pretty confident that I can get this, in front of the president's eyes. We'll see, but they need to act on this now. And these are the steps that they need to do. One of them, and Trump mentioned this in his victory speech last evening, is you have to be ready for the court battle. You have to be ready for the court battle. A lot of this can be decided in terms of what types of ballots are allowed to be counted and what not. You see in Pennsylvania, Democrats are fighting to have ballots counted that have all kinds of incredibly bizarre discrepancies that could only be accounted for, if you take the kind of fraud thesis, the steal thesis. It's just insane the types of ballots they want counted with, like signature anomalies, people whose names aren't even on their records, like all kinds of crazy stuff they want counted. So there are all types of different ballots. We need to make sure that only legitimate ballots are counted, and that's going to be a bloodbath in the courts. So you need to be prepared for that at every step, all the way up to the Supreme Court. So that's number one. Number two is, I think, it's very important. This gets into the kind of the whole broader color revolution frame that I've been really kind of promoting and raising awareness of for months now. And actually, it's I've never been so disappointed to have been so prescient in a way. It's kind of unfolding almost exactly as I've described. And we've one of the components of the color revolution. This was again a series of articles on revolver.news. One about Norm Eisen and others, but one of the big characteristics, the chief characteristic of the color revolution, is this contested election scenario, which again was bound to happen with this unprecedented mail-in ballot fiasco. Even if there weren't malicious intentions and direct vote rigging, which it looks like there's bound to be, by virtue of simple incompetence, with which this country is unfortunately rife, there's bound to be some kind of contested scenario leading to the courts. So that's one aspect you see. And the left has been framing this favorably to themselves for a very long time. And it's very important. And this gets into why last night people wonder, why aren't they calling these obvious states for Trump? Why aren't they calling Georgia for Trump? Fox News, absolute shame. We can get into this. Fox News was actually more biased against Trump than the New York Times, believe it or not. And I don't know if this is, to assuage Rupert Murdoch's ego, because Murdoch famously said, "Oh, I think Biden's going to win. I think Trump is over." I don't know what it was, but it was an absolutely shameful display. And if it turns out that Arizona, which they prematurely called against Trump, flips, I mean, in a sane world with actual accountability, which is not really the world we live in, but a sane world with accountability, it would be done. It would be, closed business. It would be, COVID lockdown level business for Fox News in the aftermath of this. But that's a separate story. But the reason that generally all of these news sites were reluctant to call obvious states for Trump is they wanted to set this narrative, even at the electoral count, that Biden is ahead at the end of the night. They want this to be an issue of Biden is the default candidate, and everything that Trump does to stop their steal can be reinterpreted as a coup attempt on Trump's part. You see, as And anything that Trump does to stop the steal needs to be framed in advance as an authoritarian, illegitimately grasping for leadership. And they've done that fairly well. And the more that Biden is the default candidate, the more that's going to happen. So that's an issue with what states have been called. That's an issue for the counting and otherwise. And that's the reason that I think Trump really needs to get ahead of this narrative. He did that a little bit last night. He needs to go even further and really start declaring victory in these states where it looks like he legitimately did win. And I would even say he should start holding rallies there. He should start making a real presence known with his own people and say, no, the default is that we won these. The default is that we won these. And to reinforce that perception with rallies and with other kind of demonstrations of strength in these states where he very likely actually did win. So that's another component. A third component, and this has to do with the respective states, is that again, this is crazy, and it gets into questions like, what are pollsters actually paid to do? We can constantly criticize them for their incorrect predictions, but in a way that's actually naive. That's not a very sophisticated thing, because their job is not to make right predictions. Right. That's not their job. People are acting like, oh, they must be horrible at their jobs because they keep getting it wrong. No, that's not their job. Their job is not to get it right. Their job is to reinforce a certain narrative. And also, again, remember, Fox News, which we've mentioned before, but also other news sites, they used polling predictions as justification for not calling states. So the polls have actually been weaponized on election night as justification for not calling a state when Trump deserves it, or for calling a state prematurely against Trump. So the polls serve that function, and the polls will serve this function as we see all of these very likely fraudulent ballots being counted. They can justify those numbers by pointing to pre-existing polls that were absolutely inflated in favor of Biden. So the polls are actually part of this steal, believe it or not. They're not just like propaganda that exists in a separate compartment. It's part of a coordinated effort. The polls function that way. And you can see this in there's discrepancies between the Democrat-run states and the Republican states. In the Republican states, the polls were absolutely blown out of the water. The polls absolutely just completely humiliated in terms of their predictions. In the Democrat-run states, you see them catching up, which is, again, a curious anomaly. But there are some advantages, though, to the Republican states themselves. And I think in the Republican states where you have Republican governors, Republican legislatures, you really need to get the right electors seated now. You need to get on top of that. And if it looks like Trump won legitimately, they should just start moving towards seating people, seating the electors that they need that corresponds to the proper interpretation of the vote count. So that's another thing they can do. And the last thing, and this gets into what you've been talking about so well, and you're pointing out, the censorship, is absolutely astonishing. If people go, this might have changed in the past like 30 minutes, but if you go to the president's timeline on Twitter, at Donald J. Trump, the last time I looked at it, 4 out of 7 of the tweets of the president of the United States have been censored. Can you believe that?
Yes. I just pulled it up right now, so let's just go through it.
Yeah.
So the first one here, you just see it. Some or all of the content shared in this tweet is disputed.
And you can't retweet it. Try to retweet it, see what happens.
Nope. I have to quote tweet it.
Exactly.
Right. And so here's, what is it exactly that's hidden here? That's the one where he said that the left's working hard to make up 500,000 vote advantage in Pennsylvania disappear. Likewise, right. Michigan. Big deal. Right. It's true.
Right. Imagine the president of the United States being censored in the aftermath of an election like that. And just one quick point about the mechanism of censorship there.
Yes.
It's not just that they force you to quote tweet. So that sort of, undermines the viral potential of multiple retweets. It's also this concept that they use in many different in many different ways, just called friction, that creates kind of a time lag in people's ability to respond to and engage with content.
Exactly.
And having these pop-ups, it's all very deliberate, and in a kind of the way that we are connected with and engage with social media, and just frankly how lazy people are, just creating those little layers of friction actually does tremendous damage to the ability to disseminate a message like that. And so that gets into the last recommendation of this piece on revolver.news. Really, I really hope everyone reads it and shares it. And I hope the president sees it. And more importantly, I hope he acts on it. The last recommendation here is how to circumvent the censorship. And he needs to have some way to speak directly to the American people. I think one way, frankly, and this is just the way to do it quickly and efficiently, he should try to set up interview with Tucker Carlson tonight and just lay it out. Say, I'm doing an interview with Tucker Carlson tonight. It'll be the biggest viewership, even by Tucker's standards, it's going to be the biggest viewership. And he needs to just go all out. Don't hold anything back. Say exactly what's going on. We won this. They're trying to steal it, and reassure the American people, all those people who supported him, all the people who stood in line for him, that he's not going to take this. And it's not just for him. Let me tell you, if they steal this election, that's it for American democracy. Like, assuming you actually believe American democracy existed anyway, that's it even for the pretense of American democracy. If they steal this notion that an election is not this, okay, on election day, everyone votes, is this continuous counting thing until the oligarchs get the result they want. There's absolutely no faith. And if they're allowed to do it this time, it's over. You have to put everything on the line to stop this. Leave nothing on the table. You got to go all out, full court press, or it's over.
So I want to go back to Fox News and tease out that a little bit. People have commented on the decision desk there having many out of the closet Democrats and leftists. And I don't know if you saw this comment from Chris Buskirk last night after the Arizona controversy. He said, Fox Decision Desk folks said earlier that they're combining their exit polls with actual results to make their calls. And he said, this is patently absurd. The only thing that counts is the ballots, not the polls. This is a means of manipulating the outcome of the election. Your reaction to that?
Well, right. Now Chris Buskirk is absolutely right. And it gets to what I was saying, is that the polls are not just some kind of separate piece of propaganda. The polls play an integral part in this steal because they're used as justification for these tendentious decisions made at the decision desks of the respective news agencies, in this case, including Fox. They're using the polls as a justification not to make a call when they should, and to make a call prematurely when they shouldn't.
Right.
They're basing those decisions in part on expectations set by the polling.
Right. So let's talk a little bit, because somebody asked a question. What do you think is going to happen if this gets to the Supreme Court?
That's a great question. And of course, I have very little confidence in what can happen. How could you? You don't know. And there are all kinds of sort of sophisticated answers to that delve into the kind of psychological profiles of the respective justices. Justice Roberts, apart from having a reputation kind of as a squish and weak and in some ways very treacherous, at least part of his public presentation, his public narrative, is that he's someone who, as a Chief Justice, tends to prioritize civic order.
Yes.
And so, even if you take that as face value, of which I'm a little bit skeptical, but even if you take that at face value, there's a question of, what is the right decision for civic order? In a way, you could argue because the left, because of all these color revolution organizations, all of these mobilization kind of Soros umbrella groups that you've been pointing out, because they're so mobilized to basically throw this epic, historical, violent, revolutionary temper tantrum throughout the country, that you could argue that, the civic order position would simply be to give it to Biden. And so I don't know what Roberts would be thinking in that case. I think just from a strategic point of view, it's also interesting to see, like, would Trump's behavior have any effect on the court's willingness to rule on his behalf? And so if Trump, again, it's like kind of constitutionally, but this time from the kind of temperamental constitution, you have, wild man Trump versus the Federalist Society. And the more Trump goes Trump, you wonder if there's going to be a reluctance on the part of the courts to kind of implicitly support that in their rulings. And so, in other words, like, the more hardcore Trump goes, does that diminish the likelihood of a favorable outcome in the courts? And if that's a factor, to what extent should it be incorporated in Trump's own strategic decision making? My kind of thought on that is Trump needs to just go all out. I agree with you. He needs to go all out. And, the courts can follow him or not. But it would be completely pathetic if Trump were to hold back, thinking that this might help him out in the courts and the courts just rule against him anyway. No, he needs to do what he can control. And what he can control is he needs to go all out to stop this deal. And, his supporters deserve nothing less.
You're absolutely right. And he went all out in the last 48 to 72 hours. I've never seen such a superhuman effort by a political figure. That guy's got more stamina and energy and fight in him than any other Republican elected official has had in my lifetime.
Yes.
And so here's the thing. It's exactly what you're saying about how important the narrative framers and narrative warpers are, because after he came out with his statement, which to me was materially no different than Joe Biden, I think it looks like we're winning and we are going to win, right? I mean, that was the bottom line of both statements, essentially. But then afterwards, you had all of the tongue cluckers and finger waggers, the never Trumpers, the Ben Shapiro's. Oh, that was so irresponsible. He shouldn't have said that. And Dana Perino on Fox and Chris Christie, all condemning because he said, I think I'm winning. It looks like they're trying to steal it from me, but hold on, because we're going to win. And that's part of it, right? That creates this aura of him being the wild man, as you say.
Right, exactly. And it's no shock that, Dana Perino, who's, some, Bush lackey, I don't know, like she was, I don't know. I'll just stop saying something because it'll be very sensitive. I'm just not going to say anything. But Dana Perino and this whole crowd, they've just been waiting for their opportunity to put the knife in Trump's back.
Yes,
that's what they've just been waiting for, the opportunity. That goes for basically the whole Republican Party, with precious few exceptions. They've just been waiting to stick the knife in, and one way or another, that's a lesson that he's going to have to learn. And I hope, he does manage to follow the advice in this Revolver News article, keep hammering it in the way that only someone with Trump's constitution and personality and capabilities and communication skills can do. And he manages to stop the steal. But once he stops the steal, he needs to learn the lessons. Say, look, this is not, these people aren't interested in playing nice, and none of the people around you are interested in playing nice. And if he does get those next 4 years, he needs to run it with with the understanding that none of these people are on his side, including the people in the Republican Party.
Yeah, I want to read for people a passage from, you've done 2 pieces now that are published at Revolver News on stopping the steal. And in the first one, let's see if I can bring this up here. I'll read it for people if it's too small. Even Fox News did its part on Tuesday night to undermine the president. All night, the network avoided calling states for Trump, even when the race was clearly over in states like Texas and Florida. Their eagerness makes complete sense once one learns that Fox's election guru is avid Democratic donor Arnon Mishkin, who's given more than $4,500 to Democrats over the years, and on Tuesday night could be seen fanatically defending his decision to declare Arizona unwinnable for Trump, even as he dragged out calling states like Texas. A lot of people were bailing on Fox last night, and they've moved to Newsmax, where I am, where you've been featured many times, OANN, other alternatives. What is the future for Fox in all of this post-election night, post-Trump?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, Fox, other than, its most notable exception, Tucker Carlson, who has pretty much the most successful cable news show ever, which is a big, it's a big exception. And in some ways, he kind of carries the network's legitimacy from the standpoint of the right. I think, Fox's stature depends on a number of things. In fact, ironically, big part of Fox's stature comes from the fact that everyone knows that the president watches Fox News constantly. And, so it's not just this first order issue of wanting to get your news from Fox, but you want to be watching what you highly suspect the president is going to be watching. So there's this additional dimension of kind of influence that Fox has in that respect. And so as much as big of a blunder as this was, and as big as the blunder as the Chris Wallace thing is, if Trump wins this, I really, it's just going to be one of these like battered wife things that keep coming back. And I think especially with, the older generations, I love the older generations, but that's the only game in town really from their point of view. And so for better or worse, I do think Fox has a lot of leverage. And so maybe the best approach is to just try to keep them honest as possible. But, the truth is there needs to be just a long-term solution on, the big tech. Maybe the answer is not even a cable channel per se. It's something integrated into the internet. But, for this kind of last generation of kind of older people who are only kind of wired to consume media on cable television, that needs to play out its course. And then what comes after, I think, will, not only be very powerful in terms of its content, but the way that the medium itself is set up will have to be kind of adjusted to our new digital environment. So I think, it might take some time for that to kick in realistically. And so as much as we might not like it, Tucker's doing great on Fox. So you just have to do what we can to keep Fox honest and to expose like egregious lapses in professionalism, really, like what you saw last night, which, again, Fox was even worse than New York Times in terms of its election coverage, which is astonishing. And so I hope that at least people, I know that, the older folks, they're going to go to Fox News and they just can't help themselves, but they need to understand that, from the corporate level and other dimensions, they're not necessarily, they might seem to be better than all the others, but they don't necessarily have the best interests of, Trump and his agenda at heart, for sure.
Yeah. A couple of things. And one is that you do this and I've done it, which is to act as a bridge between that older generation and the next important generation to come. And I haven't had a chance to watch it. It's going to be my workout viewing. But you did a long interview with John Doyle, who's a bright young guy, still hanging on YouTube for now. But definitely a huge talent. And the longer form interviews, the more substantive work that's being published on the internet, while it can be, is the future. That's the future, not 3-minute segments of dumbed down sound bites from the same 10 people on cable.
Exactly. It really is. junk food, it's cattle feed, you know, whatever you want to call it, and it's a product of a semi bygone era, but it still corresponds to the way that a very wealthy and, you know, influential generation consumes media. And so I think that's going to persist for, you know, another 10, you know, 15 years at least. And so, you know, everyone's wondering like what comes after Fox, which is in many ways kind of the same question as what comes after cable television in terms of the news environment. I think those questions are essentially connected.
Yeah. A lot of the people who are watching this now are watching it on all of the biased Silicon Valley platforms that are part of the color revolution themselves.
Right.
It's being live streamed on Facebook. And that's even now, even though I've been throttled pre-election and, you know, during this election cycle, it's where I get most of the eyeballs. I mean, there are you know, scores of thousands of people who will be able to access this, at least for a little while. And yet it's dying. This is a dying medium. And it's frustrating because, I mean, there are tons of people in the comment section. They are saying they hate Fox News. They're looking for alternatives. They hate Silicon Valley. And yet they're still using it every day. I mean, I'm using it until I get canceled, right? Until I have to find somewhere else. But then contrast that with last night, Nick Fuentes had, I think at one point, more than 50,000 live viewers on his
52,000. Yeah.
I mean, there are MSNBC shows that don't get that much live coverage. And then the Con Inc. live streams that were on last night got a fraction.
No, there's no organic support. There's no organic support. And that's the thing, is that, you know, being a mediocrity is actually a professional advantage in that kind of concern, because if you're a mediocrity, that means the only influence you'll ever have is because they deign to book you or they deign to put you on. And so you're entirely dependent on the platform, on being put on for any influence you have. And so you're basically on the reservation, as it were. And so someone who's genuinely talented, who's able to cultivate kind of an organic following and influence, has additional leverage just to kind of pick up the toys, go home, go somewhere else. And that's something that they don't like. And so that's why it's like, it's not only that people who are very talented tend to think outside the box, and that our kind of Overton window is so incredibly restricted and dumbed down now that, you know, basically anyone with an IQ over 100 who has anything interesting to say, or who dared say anything interesting at any point in their lives, has to be kind of banished from polite conversations. It's even worse than that. There's actually an incentive toward promoting mediocrities on these kind of mainstream platforms, because their role is to be interchangeable. If they step out of line in one particular way, you've got the next guy. You know, if Dana Perino steps out of the line, you know, they've got, you know, 200 blondes ready to fill her place. And so
two brunettes.
Right. So it's that kind of accounts. And that's why you see a lot of the greatest talent outside of these mainstream channels, and people who are actually able to connect with an audience, build an organic audience. And that's something that is in itself, irrespective of the actual content, the ability to connect with an audience and build an organic audience is in itself threatening to the system. And that's why, you know, in other interviews that I've done, actually, weirdly, I did an interview on Albanian TV the other day, and the Albanian newsman asked me, so why are people so freaked out about Trump? You know, why is such resistance to Trump? And of course, one of the answers to that is his policies, you know, his immigration policy, trade policy, foreign policy, at least what he ran on in 2016. But I think another dimension, maybe the greater threat that he poses, so even if he stays more or less within the policy parameters of the establishment, is that he is kind of a loose cannon. He's not exactly controlled. He does have this massive cult of personality. I don't say that in a disparaging way. He's able to build an organic following of people who love him, of people who will go boating for him, people who will go trucking for him, all of these ways to express support and just being entertaining and likable and all those things that your typical Republican politicians are not. That in itself poses a threat to his system. So even if he did step in line and basically not flout any of the establishment policy positions, simply the fact that he has a real following is a threat to the system. And I think that applies to media as well.
Yeah. You can't bottle up and mass manufacture that Q factor. That's what Roger Ailes called it. This Q factor, this likability. At its most extreme, call it cult of personality or whatever. Right. And that's what you see with so many of these talented outside of the establishment media figures who are going to be the future. Yeah. With regard to the Republican Party, of course, you look at the Martha McSallies, the Nikki Haleys, and this latest one that they're trying to foist on us, a Dan Crenshaw clone, Madison Cawthorn, right? He ticks off all the perfect boxes for the establishment. He's good looking, he's from the South, but he's as cucked as they come, right? And then they have him put his name on a piece talking about what needs to be done to bring the Republican Party into the 21st century, and every other reference is to Reagan.
Right. Well, look, in this case, I don't know much about this. I know that he's a young guy. He won his primary against Trump endorsed the other guy. He ended up winning, and there was some speculation: is he going to be America First type? And then, his behavior is kind of blown that theory out of the water. But I think, we have to, understand that, and this is just trying to be generous to him. He's young, and these ideas aren't coming from him. It's just, the handlers who happen to get on him first, and he doesn't know any better, and they're shoving these talking points in his face, and he just reads them. That's it. And so I think, for a lot of people like this, especially the younger ones, I think the better approach is, you do kind of want to bully them, but, kind of a constructive bullying. You want to bully them to where they should be if they have talent. Because if it's a good looking guy who does have some charisma, and I don't know enough about him to know if he does actually have natural talents, but assuming he did, he could be an asset if he just, different and better and more patriotic handlers got a hold of him. And he has a long enough life that's very much possible. So I think it's, a lot of it is kind of, have to understand that very few people are constituted in a way that they're actually able to develop core convictions in their own right and, act on those convictions. A lot of people just don't think in those terms. That's just not part of their being. And so that's fine. But, so it's the imperative of people like us who kind of, know the right course to have the appropriate influence on these more kind of, fluctuating types.
Yeah,
to make sure,
I know you're not a parent yet, but I'm just I am the rod wielding mom, and
right.
You'd be the more nurturing dad type, I think. Because I'm yeah.
Well, you need both. You need both. But the point is basically, and not just but people who are kind of young and just don't know any better, they can be assets, so there needs to kind of have a big tent mindset. If they say dumb stuff, absolutely, bully them for it. But, if someone like that, had the right quote unquote handlers, had the right advice, it could be weaponized in the right direction. So, and I think a lot of that's, you were going to see a lot of that going forward, especially once they realize that there's simply not an audience for all that, dumb, Reagan stuff that he was, promoting. It's not even Reagan stuff, because Reagan, to his credit, his message was resonant with his time. But we're in a different time now. So really, like, ironically, to be true to Reagan, we need to be relevant to our time and the challenges attendant to our time, and not pretend like it's, constantly 1980, but even in this disingenuous sense where you just use the name of Reagan to advance the interests of the military industrial complex and, big tech corporations and so forth. So it's of course ridiculous, but there's just not a lot of purchase to this fake conservatism anymore. And so I think it's either, something real on the right, something real on the broader right, in terms of anyone who doesn't like this emerging dystopia in America 2020.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. In a lot of ways, unfortunately, what happened last night could not have been worse for this country, for our children, for our grandchildren, for our future. The outcome of our presidential election was seized from the hands of voters, where, of course, it rightly belongs, and now resides in the control of lawyers and courts and highly partisan, clearly corrupt big city bureaucrats. So no matter what happens next, that is a tragedy. Many Americans will never again accept the results of a presidential election. That story is still unfolding tonight, obviously, and we're going to follow it as honestly as we can wherever it leads. We'll begin with that in just a minute. But first, we want to acknowledge the good news. And believe it or not, there is some good news, regardless of everything else that has happened. And here it is. America remains. It's still here. That's the first and most important thing. And it's not a foregone conclusion. We almost lost it. Democrats told us they wanted to beat Donald Trump. They spent more money than anyone ever has in any election in history to do that. But there was a lot more going on. Democrats didn't harness the full power of big tech and the billionaire class simply to make Joe Biden president. No. What they really wanted was total control over everything. No more democracy, no more dissent, permanent obedience from the rest of us. And they came shockingly close to getting that. If Democrats had won the White House and the Senate last night, the country as we know it would have ended. Not because Democrats have bad ideas, though they do, but because Democrats plan to impose an entirely new system on our country. Not an agenda, a system. With nothing to check their power, the left fully intended to eliminate the traditional American balances within our government, along with the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that constrain their power. We're not overstating this. Joe Biden's party planned to turn our highest court into a partisan political weapon. They admitted that. They wrote magazine articles about how they planned to do it. Then they planned to pack the Congress of the United States, the legislative branch, by adding new states to our union, purely for the Senate seats. We're not speculating there either. They admitted that too. Then they planned to pack the electorate itself, the ultimate corruption in a democracy. 20 million foreign nationals added to our voter rolls overnight. That was their agenda. How would any of that improve the United States of America? Well, they never claimed that it would. Making this country better was never the point. The point was to create a permanent Democratic majority, a one-party state with complete control over the population. Never in our history has any mainstream political party proposed an agenda more radical than this. They didn't talk about it much. There's a reason for that, of course. They didn't want to scare you. But it was entirely real. And last night it came very close to happening. We should all be deeply grateful that it didn't. We're telling you this because we want to be clear about the stakes involved. This isn't a matter of opinions and a difference between those opinions. This isn't about policy. It's about the system that all of us live under, that governs this country. That's what's at stake. So keep that in mind as we move forward. And now to the rest of the day's news. We want to start with an overview of all that we have just seen, and we can't think of anyone better to provide that overview than Professor Victor Davis Hanson, who joins us now. Professor, thanks so much for coming on. So where do you think we are right now?
I think I'm really worried like you are. I mean, a constitutional republic, Tucker, relies more on just laws. It has protocols and good faith traditions. We've been told for 3 months that this was going to be a landslide. That was the media mantra every day. This is a media that the Shorenstein Center said is 93% biased. So here we are tonight, 600,000 uncounted votes in Maricopa, a red county, mostly in Arizona. And we don't even have any idea except that Donald Trump has a lead in Pennsylvania, and the media told us that this could not happen. And they did that. Why? Did they do it so we would get information, so we'd be better citizens? No, they did it to gin up enthusiasm for one candidate and to decrease momentum for the other. And then we heard last night that Arizona was in the bag, it's all done, and people called that state before they did Texas and Florida in some cases. And then we go to the pollsters and we think, well, they learned their lesson in 2016, that all of their pseudoscientific 90.6 or 84.2 accurate, that was all over with. They were completely discredited. They came back, and by September, the guru Nate Silver was saying 89% chance of a Biden victory, and we were told landslide. And so then we turn on their televisions, and what do we learn? They're completely discredited again, but they did set a narrative. So now we're bewildered, we're losing faith in our political institutions, and they're culpable because they conditioned the electorate to think that what was very likely and probable was absolutely impossible. And when you add into this big media and big pollster mix, this cartel, you mix big tech. So the President of the United States has legitimate reasons to worry about the sanctity of this election. And then we have a private entity, a Twitter CEO says that you have to be warned about what the president says when he uses Twitter. Or people throughout this campaign have been deplatformed and canceled. And people are saying, you know what? That's our property, we can do what we want. And then we have the big banks. So they're targeting individual senators, $100 million for races. I mean, Mitch McConnell was going to win no matter what, but what was the purpose of that? It was to send a message, we have unlimited resources, and if you want to get on TV and be a point man for judicial confirmations or Kavanaugh hearings, we're going to go after you, and we're going to tell everybody else, if you get on our side, we're going to really go after you in a Senate race and bankrupt you or make your life miserable. So I'm really worried because when you add into that mix big media, big tech, big banks, and these big pollsters, it's this bi-coastal, we get back to the same theme, this bi-coastal privileged elite who have no idea what's going on in the interior of the country, but fear it very greatly. In this election, Tucker, it was a story between academia, Hollywood, celebrities, Silicon Valley, the media, the big banks, Wall Street, and who did Donald Trump have on his side? He had those people at the rallies, he had an outreach to minorities, he had talk radio, and that's about it. And so I'm very worried that a lot of people are gaining and using inordinate influence in a way that's really warping a constitutional system that's worked really well for 233 years. So why can't we just take a deep breath, not call these states before we know the decision, and let the people decide? And that's not what they want. It's landslide, landslide, landslide. And then when you don't get a landslide, it's, oh, you won't concede. Well, you won't concede because the votes haven't been counted. But they precondition the viewers not to accept that. And so it's very dangerous what they're doing. It's got a bad history in totalitarian societies when the media and pollsters and technology and utilities do what they're doing.
And yet, I can't help, and I'm looking for a bright spot here, and I think there is one. In the face of all of that, more power arrayed on one side of a political contest maybe than ever in the history of democracy. Tens of millions of people resisted.
Absolutely. I mean, here we are sitting tonight, and it looks like the Republicans have a good chance of keeping the Senate. They picked up seats in the House where we told that would be impossible, and there is a pathway for Donald Trump to win the presidency, and they had none of the help of any of these warped institutions that the left relied on. And what the bottom line of the subtext is, the left doesn't have 51% approval of the people. The people are not with them, and they use all of these other levers to condition a pre-desired result, but they don't have the people.
That's pretty clear. Victor Davis Hanson, I appreciate that. Great to see you tonight.
Thank you.
So where are we right now at 8:09 p.m. Eastern Time? What are the numbers? Bill Hemmer has been following this for about 24 hours now. We're happy to have him on tonight. Bill, where are we?
Nice to see you, Tucker. Good evening to you. 8 o'clock on the East Coast, as you mentioned here. You need to get to 270, right? At the moment, we've got Joe Biden at 264 electoral votes. If he were to take Nevada, which, by the way, is not going to happen tonight, we'll see if it happens tomorrow, he'd be at the magic number 270. It's that simple for him at the moment. For Donald Trump, he's got to come here. We haven't yet called Alaska. No one has, really, so that'd be 3 electoral votes out there. Feels good about Georgia, get him to 233. They feel confident about North Carolina, 15 electoral votes and 248. Now, you know what's going on in Pennsylvania? We don't know when it's going to be sorted out, Tucker. Is it days or weeks away? But that would be 20 electoral votes there, and then he comes out to Nevada and picks up the 6 electoral votes there. Based on that scenario, he's got to run the table at this point. And that's what he's up against. And if that vote holds now, Tucker, that's why you see this argument over Arizona. We called it late into the night last night, 11 electoral votes for Arizona. We can tell you as of tonight, there's between 500,000 and 600,000 votes that are still outstanding. Well, this is Phoenix and this is Maricopa County. We got some more votes to come in. Really decent turnout here, too, for the people in Maricopa County. This is Tucson, Arizona, Pima County down here. Not as many votes there, but still populated, not as much as Phoenix, but the Trump campaign is saying they're going to pick up votes from all over this location here, with about 15% of the votes still outstanding. Why does that matter? It matters because he could close the margin right here between these two, Biden and Trump. Problem is this. Trump has to exceed 2 more percentage points that he's getting at the moment. If he hits that number, he could flip this state. But right now, he's not doing that in Arizona tonight, Tucker.
Still a question mark, though. Interesting. Bill Hemmer, thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. So news organizations have called the state of Michigan for Joe Biden, but we're seeing a lot of strange things happen in that state tonight, including poll watchers apparently being blocked from witnessing the count. And that's not a good sign. Matt Finn has been covering from an absentee ballot counting center in the city of Detroit, and he joins us tonight. Matt, good to see you. What do you see?
Tucker, today there are some pretty tense moments inside of this room. Basically, some poll workers or some of the voting challengers told us that there was not an equal number of Democrats and Republicans in this room throughout the entire process. It led to some shoving matches or some fighting matches, and eventually police had to step in and escort people out of the absentee ballot counting room. I took these people's claims to the Secretary of State here in Michigan. A spokesperson tells us in part, quote, "These are poll challengers who have a legal avenue to address any legitimate concerns regarding any rules they claim we're not following." Now, in the midst of all that chaos, there were some windows back here that allowed for observation that were covered up with paper and posters. That led to even more confusion and outrage as protesters pounded on these windows, demanding the ability to see inside. I talked to Detroit City Attorney a short while ago. He tells us he ordered some of the windows to be covered because some of the poll workers nearest the windows were concerned that people were filming them or information on the ballots. And right now, Detroit, Tucker, tells us that it has about 1,500 absentee ballots or less to be counted, and then all of Detroit's absentee ballots will be counted. Tucker.
Matt Finn, thanks. Detroit, Michigan, one of the most mismanaged places in the Western Hemisphere. Now tonight helping to pick your president. Well, today the Trump campaign announced legal action over alleged vote counting irregularities in several states. We'll tell you what they're alleging from a Trump campaign attorney. That's straight ahead.
Okay, that's going to do it for tonight. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.